like the Fed can profit from lending U.S. currency, but when its member banks get into financial trouble, a government institution called the FDIC will bail them out. Is it good business for taxpayers to print Fed's currency, taking payment for materials and labor in the same specie? Should we have to take on debt and have money for commerce? In 1791, Jefferson debated Hamilton, refusing to leave our country in the grip of perpetual debt. Knowledge is power. For a free banking report, call 1-800-686-2237.
Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
Well, I've been warning you about it for at least 5 years. All terrorism that we've looked at from the World Trade Center to Oklahoma City to Waco has been government actions. They need this as a pretext to bring you and your family martial law. They're either using provocateur Arabs and allowing them to do it, or this is full complicity with the federal government. The evidence is overwhelming to bring you up to speed on what's happened. At 8:50 a.m. EDT, plane hits World Trade Center. 9:20, FBI says at least one plane hijacked. 9:30 Eastern, second jet crashes into World Trade Center. Plane hits Pentagon. 9:40, federal officials said a U.S. airplane has hit the Pentagon. The crash comes nearly an hour after two planes hit the World Trade Center building. All U.S. buildings in Capitol Hill evacuated. 10:13, 10:15, World Trade Center South Tower collapses. 10:20, report explosion at Capitol. 10:30, U.S. congressional leaders, top cabinet officials moving to secure facilities. 10:30, another hijacked plane reported 20 minutes south of Washington, D.C. Second tower north collapses. Hijacked plane crashes south of Pittsburgh, PA. Officials investigating at another hijacking with the plane headed towards D.C. And 10:45, all federal buildings in D.C. have been evacuated. So, and then we're told other planes are in the air. They're finding bombs at schools. We don't know how many of these reports are accurate. We know the two planes have crashed into the World Trade Center. Both columns, both buildings with 50,000 plus people in them have collapsed in the last hour. We did a simulcast with the Derry Brownfield syndicated program. We had Jim Wright on, who's a family friend of mine who lives out in Fredericksburg, Texas. He's in investment banking and leasing and was in the building right next door to the World Trade Center towers, the One World Trade Center towers, as they're now called. Piles of dead bodies everywhere, body parts up to 6 blocks away. The buildings are absolutely leveled. He was right there in the midst of it. This is pandemic. This is one of the biggest stories of the last century and now into the 21st century. We're going to have Dave Uncleis and Joyce Riley joining us, other Genesis hosts, one of which lives in New York. But we have an eyewitness coming up after this break if his cell phone holds. Jim Wright. We also have a landline for him, but landlines aren't working too well. There are massive phone line and digital phone line disturbances across the country. We're having trouble connecting via ISDN line to Liberty Works Radio Network based in Maryland. Are we connected with them yet? We will continue to bring you all of this information. I know we're carried by a lot of stations that don't normally carry the show because they know that I have been predicting this for years. If you go to Infowars.com, you'll find some interesting evidence there. The story from back in April out of the Baltimore Sun, where the Joint Chiefs of Staff were caught wanting to blow up civilian airliners, attack the Marines at Guantanamo Bay using an Army company disguised as Cubans, bomb Washington, D.C. We have the James Bamford story, best-selling author, former 2020 executive with the CIA and NSA documents. The feds wanted to blow up civilian airlines, wanted to bomb Washington, wanted to shoot people in Miami as a pretext to invade Cuba in 1962. That is on Infowars.com. Mainstream, but Kennedy said no. 6 months later, his head was blown off. We have become a different society in 2001. Back in 1993, it was in the New York Times, October 28th, that the feds trained the bombers, trained the drivers, cooked the bomb, and allowed that bombing to go forward. They got caught because one of the informants recorded the FBI telling him to let the bombing go forward because he was worried about being framed for it. What am I saying? I'm saying who stands to gain from this? Who has the motive? Who can bring you martial law and destroy your freedom? The government. It's not our government. Stay with us.
The Genesis Communications Radio Network proudly presents The Alex Jones Show, because there's a war on for your mind.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, in the last hour I was on with Derry Brownfield, who'll be joining us a little bit later in the show, syndicated talk show host. We talked to Jim Wright, one of my family friends, who is an investment banker who lives in Fredericksburg, Texas, but lives half the year in New York. He was in the building, one of the banking centers right next door to the World Trade Center towers when the first jet slammed into it this morning, then another one slammed into it. He was there as the towers collapsed, dead bodies up to 6 blocks away, arms, legs, you name it. Another hijacked plane crashed south of Pittsburgh, PA. Officials investigating at another hijacking with the plane headed towards D.C. They are declaring a THREATCOM level Delta, the highest military threat. Under THREATCOM Delta, they are loading the nuclear bombs onto the planes. The missiles are ready. Everybody is buzzing around in the streets like bees. Radios and televisions are on. People are absolutely focused into it. We haven't seen something of this magnitude since the Kennedy assassination back in 1963. We were able to get Jim via his cell phone there on the scene amongst all of the carnage. We should be praying for the dead and dying and praying for this country and that God heal this land, this modern Babylon that would create something like this. I'll tell you the bottom line. 98% chance this was a government-orchestrated controlled bombing. I've been telling you this was going to happen. Just 2 weeks ago, I put the call out again for Operation Expose the Government Terrorist. We are not anti-government. We are anti-corrupt New World Order system that has taken control of our government every day. I read news stories where they were telling you that we were going to be hit by terrorists, that it was going to happen anytime. Give up your rights. They've been telling us we're going to get hit by anthrax. We're going to get hit by smallpox. The AP reported on a secret meeting with the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the heads of the media, with fake newscasts they produced back in June, where they predicted 1 to 4 million dead from anthrax. Martial law was the term used. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but they've been preparing for it, and they have been saying it's going to happen. Repeat, they plan to blow up airlines and bomb Washington in 1962. Joint Chiefs of Staff documents confirmed by the Baltimore Sun and James Bamford, retired 2020 executive who's been on this show. Oklahoma City was a government bombing. We've proven that with General Benton Parton, former head of Air Force weapons development, on this show. We have also proven it with Dr. Frederick Whitehurst, former head of the FBI Crime Lab, Hoppy Heidelberg, grand juror. We know Waco was a government action, and only government stands to gain from this horrible event. Only the police state. Now, we have Chris McCarsky, who is a Genesis broadcaster and who lives in New York. Going back to Jim Wright, eyewitness, family friends that I know personally. Jim, tell us where you work, what you saw, and basically run down for this audience exactly what developed this morning at 8:50 a.m. when the first plane slammed into the South World Trade Center. Go ahead, sir.
Sure, Alex. I'm in the I was at that time in the World Finance Center, directly across the street from the World Trade Center, between the World Trade Center and the Hudson River. We heard a shock, 10 till 9 or so. I actually saw walls vibrating in some of the neighboring buildings, heard a noise that sounded like cherry bombs followed by almost like a dump truck dumping gravel sound. Looked out one side of our building where I thought the noise came from on the riverside. That wasn't it. We went back to the front, and at that point there are a number of our people lined up on the 15th floor watching One World Trade Center burn. It was burning from about the 100th floor up. While we were watching it, you could actually see bodies coming out of the windows. Some were obviously dead. Others were flailing as they came down.
Were they on fire?
Just smoke. That's a little gruesome, but
just getting the details.
Yeah. Anyway, after the third or fourth body we observed come out. They were trying to set us assured in our building that that it was another building that was affected. We shouldn't be concerned. Well, about that time, the second plane hit. We actually saw the flames shoot out hundreds of feet. That plane looked like it hit maybe the 80th floor, 75th to 80th floor. At that point, we knew this was a target, so we evacuated our building, and went out towards the Hudson River to catch a ferry back across the river.
Yeah, this is not a B-23 in World War II in fog crashing into the Empire States Building.
No. This the plane that we saw looked like a full-size passenger plane, not necessarily a big wide body. Although
what color was the plane?
All I saw was like a flash of white, Alex. Just barely caught the glimpse of. I'm not even sure if it was a fin section or the tip of the wing, but
watching the footage of a passenger plane, a medium-sized passenger plane, slamming into the World Trade Center and exploding out the other side. That was so surreal. What was it like to see it with your own two eyes, Jim?
It's like it was slow motion. It's like a movie. I mean, it's like reading a techno thriller. You just can't believe something like this really, truly can happen.
Jim, what happened next?
I guess the perfect word.
Absolutely. We appreciate you joining us, and I know your family is very happy in Fredericksburg that you're alive and listening right now on 91.7 FM. What exactly developed after the second plane slammed into the building?
Well, we got out and went to the riverside to catch a ferry. We still saw several more bodies come out. We got across the river, and we were watching the buildings. Suddenly, at One World Trade Center, you could hear the shock. It looked like an explosion or things blowing out from around the 70th or 80th floor all the way around the building. And the building just dropped straight down. The building was literally gone within 5 seconds. I mean, Alex, I used to be a structural engineer, and I've watched buildings implode. It was the most perfect implosion I've ever seen in my life. It came straight down in one monolithic piece.
Now, you were a structural engineer. How could fire in the upper floors, you say one plane hit about the 100th floor, the other hit about the 75th floor, how does that cause a building to completely collapse?
I don't believe it does, Alex. I mean, looking at the way the building came down, it looked like there was charges up around the 70th, but I just got to believe there was also charges at the base of the building.
Okay, sir.
And to bring something down that fast, I mean, one of two things have to happen. Either the charges have to be so perfectly placed, I mean, engineered, or there has to be so much there that it just obliterates everything.
Jim Wright, go
ahead, Alex.
This is like a bad nightmare. I know you're familiar with what I do. I have produced a film showing the feds removing unexploded bombs from the columns at the Oklahoma City building that was blown out,
right.
Obviously not blown in. This is government. What you have just told us, sir, I saw those buildings collapse. You were right there. I was watching it on the news. They wanted massive death. So you're saying, as a structural engineer, you are witnessing this. It is collapsing. And then both the structures, only placed charges are so precise. Is that what you're saying?
That's the way it appeared to me, Alex. And I'm not a PE, a professional engineer, but I studied at the master's level, and I degreed. And they were just perfect implosions, both of them.
Yeah, it just totally collapsed.
The second building came down a little bit slower. If the first one took 5 seconds, the second building took 10. The outside corner columns stayed up for a bit, but then just because of lack of stability, they came down also.
So you're telling me, sir, again, exactly what's your job there at the World Financial Center?
Well, I'm a financial analysis with one of the accounting firms, one of the big 5 accounting firms. And I've been out of engineering for close to 20 years. So I want to qualify what I'm saying.
I understand, but still, we've all seen buildings get blown up on the news in Las Vegas when they're getting rid of them, how they collapse symmetrically. And this was one of the most symmetrical collapses I've ever seen, but then it was obscured by smoke. What did you see there? Where were you on the ground when the first tower collapsed, Jim?
I was across the river, across the Hudson River, about a block from the waterfront, but we had a perfect view of everything. I would say this is about 1.5 miles away from the World Trade Center site. Now I'm sitting on the back of my boat in a marina at the Statue of Liberty Park, and I'm still about 1.5 miles from the site.
Now we have the top third and the top halves of these buildings burning, and suddenly they just collapse. They're steel reinforced. You would think that they would just lean over to the side or fall over, not completely collapse.
That's exactly what you would think, Alex. You would have thought they would have come down somewhat slow, that they would have bent, they would have distorted.
Jim, you know I say the Fed blew up Oklahoma City. Do you see how the government could stand to gain to bring us a police state from this happening?
Alex, I'm not even going to go there. I have no opinion on that, or I just, I'll just tell you the facts I see. And
well, how would
I'm not going to speculate who did this or anything like that. That's way beyond my knowledge base.
Certainly you heard about Hitler burning the Reichstag as a pretext to declare martial law.
Pardon me?
Hitler burning the Reichstag as a pretext to declare martial law?
Yeah.
Well, I've been predicting this for 5 years. I'm just so glad that you're alive. Have you had a chance to talk to your wife?
Yeah, I have, Alex. As far as I know, all the people I know got out, and we're just, we're very thankful we're not a victim.
Well, Jim, we've got to break again. I want to ask you questions about what happened after the two buildings collapsed, the carnage, what authorities were doing. Can you stay with us for 10 more minutes?
Sure, Alex.
All right, we're talking to Jim Wright. My good buddy Kevin Booth, his sister is Mr. Wright's wife, and I've enjoyed many good dinners and out there at Fredericksburg with him. It's just amazing. And then we'll go to Jerry Brownfield.
Hey folks, Alex Jones here, and I wouldn't have believed it myself if I hadn't seen it with my own 2 eyes. You've heard the rumors of the dark workings of the global elite. Now I have proof from the secretive Bohemian Club. Many of our world leaders are heavily involved in occult practices. Here are just a few clips from my 2-hour film.
Don't burn me once again! Fire shall have its will of thee.
Is it bad to have something that's secret, elite, and pagan at the same time?
Yeah. Sounds like Satan's building his cult. Satan's building his army.
It's part of public record that world leaders attend. How could any of us sleep knowing that the people controlling our lives are involved in dark occult activity? Help us expose this evil. Order Dark Secrets inside Bohemian Grove today. Call toll-free at 888-253-3139 or go to my website, Infowars.com. That number again is 888-253-3139. Big Brother's afraid of this documentary. Order it today and spread the word.
Every day, the average person breathes over 8,600 liters of air, most of it in their own homes. Have you considered the quality of your home's air? Many people with asthma, allergy, and other respiratory conditions have benefited from the use of high-efficiency Inqua 3 stage furnace filter, and now it's available to you. This filter is like none other and can clean your home's air simply and effectively, just by replacing your current furnace filter. So if you want to have purer, fresher air in your home, call Breathe Plus today, 866-862-7328, and ask about the Inqua 3 stage furnace filter. It's great for homes with small children, pets, air conditioning, and dusty environments, and is available for as little as 10 cents a day. Call Breathe Plus at 1-866-862-7328. Again, that's toll-free, 1-866-862-7328, or visit their website at breatheplus.com.
Do you have trouble getting around? Are you unable to shop the mall or go get groceries? Do you miss family gatherings because you have to depend on others? Do you feel you've lost your independence and think you will never get it back? Well, think again, because you can be independent with a Rascal scooter from Electric Mobility. The Rascal electric scooter is affordable, portable, and so easy to drive that anybody can use it. Would you like to see for yourself? Then call toll-free 1-800-659-8822 to receive a free Rascal catalog. That's 1-800-659-8822. Take your first step to gaining back your independence. Don't wait. Call 1-800-659-8822 for your free Rascal catalog and a special introductory money-saving offer. Just think, with the Rascal Scooter, you'll never have to give up special times with family and friends just because you don't get around as well as you used to. For your free Rascal catalog, call 1-800-659-8822. That's 1-800-659-8822. Call now.
More than 700 chemicals have been found in our drinking water. And did you know that you can have greater exposure to these chemicals by taking hot showers than when you drink the water? That's because many chemicals are inhaled when they evaporate, and others are absorbed through the skin. The KDF shower filter is designed to reduce chlorine, lead, mercury, and iron, and it inhibits the growth of bacteria, mold, algae, and fungus in your shower. The media is non-toxic, environmentally sound, and is recyclable. The KDF shower filter will typically last 10,000 gallons or 1 year, whichever comes first. Hospitals, restaurants, and water treatment facilities use this media to reduce chlorine, iron, heavy metals, and bacteria. What about you? Order your KDF shower filter, normally $49, for our special price of only $35, a $14 savings. Call now to order at 1-888-803-4438. Order today and save $14 by calling 1-888-803-4438.
Waging war on corruption. Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network.
Securities, commodities have stopped trading globally. Stuff is going absolutely nut on the stock markets from China to London. It's just pandemic insanity financially. We have Derry Brownfield, syndicated broadcaster, on the line. I know Derry will hold right there because I want to get his studied analysis of all of this as well. We have other listeners in New York that will be able to come on the show. We have an eyewitness on right now coming up, financial news for you, which is really central to all of this. Jim Wright, you're in the whole financial sector, working at some of the highest levels of this. Talk about what was housed in that World Trade Center and how you think this will affect the markets, and then, of course, continuing with what you saw after the two towers collapsed.
Sure. Obviously, everything is just going to shut down. I don't think any of the buildings, even around the Trade Center, will be able to open for quite a while. It's still hot here. Everybody has the air conditioning systems on, so they're drawing tremendous amounts of smoke and debris into the buildings. Back when the Trade Center was bombed, I know it was weeks that it took to just get all the smoke damage and debris damage out of the surrounding buildings.
How many blocks did the collapse of the buildings create? I mean, it looked like it was stretching for 100 blocks.
As far as the actual blast, there's no way I could tell from my vantage point.
You were right there in it, so
I was across the street, and you just. Because there are so many tall buildings around, you really can't see more than a block away.
Where are you now, Jim?
Alex, I'm across the Hudson River, near about half a mile from the Statue of Liberty and about a mile and a half from the Trade Center site.
What are the authorities doing?
It's just solid sirens everywhere. On this side of the river, they're just trying to move people away from the river. A lot of ferries and various emergency vehicles or boats are bringing people into our marina to load onto ambulances. I don't know if they're picking people up from the sides or out of the water. I haven't been down to that.
How many people worked in the Trade Center? I'm told it's at least 50,000.
We were speculating between 40 and 50,000.
And if both buildings collapsed, do you have any idea how many people got out?
I don't. People tend to start the day, maybe it's fortunate, people start the day a little bit later here just because of the time zone we're in. And so you do have a lot of people that are still pulling into work after 9 o'clock, between 9 and 10. So the fact that it was at least before 9 should be helpful. One thing I'll point out is, just looking at the amount of time between the time the planes hit and the time that these buildings were imploded, however that was brought about. In one hand, it was almost like they were giving people time, what people could be evacuated, civilians, to be evacuated. But it seemed like it was about 45 minutes, which also seems like...
It was almost like they were giving them time to evacuate. Again, degreed in the structural engineer area, you're saying it was the most beautiful implosion you've ever seen, and of some of the biggest buildings in the world.
Absolutely. It was perfectly engineered as far as the way it came down. But, you know, when you think about the amount of time that passed between the initial hit and the implosions, it almost appears that if it was designed to maximize the number of emergency personnel that would be affected, because, you know, as you're bringing civilians out, you're shipping tactical emergency personnel into the building, and, you know, it just seems like this was engineered in a lot of ways.
Well, I think it's safe to say now that I'm going to cancel the Janet Reno protest, or it may still go forward in Waco tomorrow or 2 days from now. Jim, what were you feeling? I mean, what was going through your mind as the plane, the second one, exploded out the other end of the building at about the 75th floor, and then they collapsed, and now watching all of this bedlam?
Oh, it was just the thought that this is not an accident or a building failure. This is a deliberate act of sabotage in some form. This whole area is a target, and the thing to do is just to leave the building calmly while everybody else in the building is also behaving calmly.
And we don't want to forget the Pentagon has been hit by a large aircraft also in Pennsylvania, right outside Pittsburgh. It slammed into the international airport there. This is massive. We will continue to bring you late-breaking news. Jim Wright, bodies. How many bodies did you see?
I saw 4 or 5, I guess, on the ground that they hauled off early on, and over the course of time, I probably saw another 8 bodies come out of the buildings, out of the upper floors.
Jumping out of the buildings or being blown out?
Well, some were smoldering and just dropped like sacks of cement, so I presume they were dead or out of it. Other ones were flailing.
Jim, stay with us for one more quick segment, then I want to check in with you throughout the day. We really appreciate you. Gary Brownfield is coming up, and then some financial news.
We're on the march. The Empire's on the run. Alex Jones and the GCN Radio Network.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the 2 aircraft slammed into both the World Trade Center towers. They have collapsed. A lot of deaths there on the ground. We should be praying for everyone. We have another plane smashing into the Pentagon. Part of the structure has caved in, is being reported. Another one slammed into the Pittsburgh, PA airport right outside town, the international airport. This just in, U.S.-Canada, Mexico borders have been sealed. That is martial law, ladies and gentlemen. We have 3 streams now available on the Internet. Record listenership there, obviously, people trying to get the truth and the information. And we're on 2 global shortwave frequencies. We're about to go back to Jim Wright, our eyewitness, and then we're going to get to Gary Brownfield and Ted Anderson with the financial news. Everybody, bear with us. Let's quickly go to John Statmiller for an announcement that we're broadcasting to the military right now on an emergency frequency, not just on our AM and FM transmitters. We're on a licensed military transmitter. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, Alex, we are going to maintain the 12172 for our Genesis audience. We're not going to switch gears. Initially, we thought it might be a good idea to switch for the military from the 12172 standard shortwave broadcast to the upper single sideband. And for the sake of our listeners, we are not going to do that. David France provided an emergency transmitter on 9.320 on upper single sideband, and he will continue broadcasting on that frequency.
John, 30 seconds. You're coming up for 2 hours after me today at 2 o'clock Central. Your analysis of this, I think we can tell who's behind it. You just heard Jim, who's got a degree in engineering, saying that thing was brought down beautifully with precision.
It definitely was, and this is an orchestrated thing. Ironically, they waited till both the House and the Senate was back in session to do this. There is some word, of course, the U.S. financial markets have been closed. The Mexican border is now being sealed off. All of the U.S. air traffic, all the airports around the country are being shut down and evacuated. So FEMA you have not heard anything out of FEMA, but what I have heard, and I need to confirm this, that FEMA had been brought up on alert before the first plane hit the tower in New York City.
As usual, and local news is reporting they're evacuating government buildings here in Austin and talking about troops on the streets. I heard that on KLBJ, John. We'll continue to bring people breaking news. Check back in with us in the next 2 hours. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Alex.
All right, 9320. Let's go back to Jim Wright. Jim, I appreciate you holding. Any other key points as an eyewitness there working at the World Financial Center as this developed today?
Sure, Alex. I mean, to look at the skyline now, it's like a kid's had its teeth pulled out. I mean, it's just the most bizarre thing to see the New York Lower Manhattan skyline without those two towers. Right now, I can tell you a third building that's across the street from the old towers, it's also in the World Trade Complex, is on fire. It's about a 50, 60-story building. I can see fire through the windows on about halfway up the building around the 30th floor. The whole side of the building smoking on the side.
So we now have a 50 to 60-story building on fire as well. Do you know the name of that building?
It's one of the World Trade Center buildings. It's probably like 5 or World Trade Center 5 or World Trade Center 6, something like that.
Unbelievable. Will you be available at this number for another update in the next hour?
Yeah, it should be, Alex.
We'll just get little 5-minute updates from you throughout the day, Jim Wright. Again, any other information the listeners need to know?
Just be careful because who knows where this is going to happen next.
Yeah, and imagine
just keep your eyes open because
the pretext.
It's just unbelievable.
Imagine the pretext for control. I mean, you think there'll be a call for us to give up some of our rights for safety?
Well, I don't know. I don't know what is all going on right now, except, they've shut down the airports. We only have one network television station that we can see here, which is up around channel 68.
Wait a minute. They've shut down the networks?
Well, I think it's because all the antennas were on top of the Trade Center.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, those giant TV antennas.
So we can only get one network television right now. It's one of the Spanish stations. The NBC affiliate just you can barely in the fuzz see that they're broadcasting a kind of a still photo with, no backup.
Unbelievable. So there, as an eyewitness now, a mile and a half away, you see World Trade Center building 5 or 6, a 50, 60-story building on fire as well.
That's correct.
How much of the building is consumed by flame?
Well, you can only see flame coming out the windows middle 2 or 3 floors. But the entire building, top to bottom, is obscured in smoke.
All right.
So it looks like, the fire goes all the way up. I don't know if something actually happened that ignited within that building or if that's collateral damage from the towers.
All right. Jim Wright, right there on the scene. I can confirm I know Jim personally. And we really appreciate Jim giving us that eyewitness report. We'll check back in with you, Jim, and be careful.
Okay, well, I'm dropping off.
You want to say hi to your family listening in Fredericksburg?
Yeah, that, and maybe walk down by the water, see if I can help out if they need emergency boats or anything.
All right. Oh, because you got your boat there.
Yeah.
All right, Jim, thank you.
Take care, guys.
There you have it. And when I tell you that I know Jim, that's just to confirm that I know this individual. They have a summer home in Fredericksburg, and I've been out at their place many times, and there is Jim actually on the scene, an eyewitness we can confirm, and a structural engineer, degreed in it, doesn't practice it, watching those buildings collapse with military precision. This is amazing. Let's go to Derry Brownfield, syndicated radio talk show host, who will graciously allow myself and others on the air. Then we'll have check-ins from Joyce Riley and Dave Von Kleist, as well as Ted Anderson coming up here in about 5 minutes. Derry, thank you for holding, sir. You've been covering this stuff for years. I've been on your show predicting this, warning people. I put out press releases on it, that this was going to happen and that a police state would arise. What is your take on all of this, Mr. Brownfield?
Well, Alex, believe it or not, it did not shock me very much when all this happened today. And the reason is because, and my listeners have heard me say this hundreds of times, I've read the back of the book. We pretty well have an idea of what's going on. We know what's going on. I have a little interesting information here that I did not have when I was on the air with you earlier, or when you were on my show earlier today. But my original plan today was to talk with Charlotte Eiselbert, and I called her. She was one of the individuals that didn't know a thing about this until I contacted her, and I said, well, we need to change our programming. And she just called back a moment ago, and she said that her husband has a friend that's a Belgian businessman. And he says that all of Europe is full of the news that 2 men with Belgian passports entered into Afghanistan and killed bin Laden 2 days ago. He says this is all over Europe, but not here in the United States. Had you heard anything about that?
Yes, last night on local cable. In fact, I'm going to get that. Greg Erickson, one of my associates, was covering that, and I'm so used to seeing all this, I didn't even cover it last night. We become so, I'm on from 9 to midnight Central, we become so conditioned to all of it. In fact, Violent, bring me that, please. Derry, what do you think about them sealing the Canada and Mexican border and declaring civil emergency, which they've done? They now have it at ThreatCon Delta, the highest military readiness. Nuclear warheads have been loaded on the planes. Cruise missiles are loaded into the B-52s. The missiles are activated. The center of government has moved to an underground secret installation. They won't tell us where. Bush is airborne right now on Air Force One. They could be nuking somewhere in the Middle East any time now. What do you see coming up?
I have no idea, but you mentioned the borders being closed, and I heard you say earlier on your show that definitely is martial law. For whatever it's worth, this came from Missouri's governor just moments ago. Governor Holden in Missouri has placed the State National Guard, the State Highway Patrol, and the Capitol Police on heightened alert. Now, he goes on to say, all high traffic areas in the state have been placed under federal alert. Now, I don't know what that means. I don't know what federal alert.
This is under FEMA command. That's what I got on the local news. They're going to have troops out, the whole 9 yards. I reported last Friday, Derry, that the Austin police are being trained to drive city buses on pickup routes for citizens. I actually talked to two of the top trainers at Capital Metro, the bus authority, the transit authority. I also had one of their senior drivers on, and I talked, some of them wouldn't come on the air, some did, with the union. They have never seen or heard of anything like this. It's under some emergency directive over and above the union contract. This is some scary stuff, sir. And did you hear Jim Wright, who I know personally? You know, he's a wealthy guy, works for a big bank internationally, got an engineering degree.
He worked on the right side of the street today, didn't he?
Yeah, he was on the right side of the street today. My point is he's a credible guy. He said those buildings were the most beautiful implosions. He said charges had to be placed on the columns. And Jim doesn't agree with me about this whole New World Order. Frankly, Jim is an establishment guy getting pretty rich off of it.
You know, I was just handed another news release. Evacuations nationwide were ordered at the United Nations building in New York, the Sears Tower in Chicago, the tallest skyscrapers in Boston, Cleveland, Minneapolis, Seattle, Space
God bless
Needle.
You, Paul. I'm sorry for screaming, everybody.
I don't know. Was I on just saying?
You were on. They were just telling me that we're going to cease most of our commercials. And if local stations want to air theirs, go ahead.
Okay.
I was not ignoring you, Derry. They popped in.
No, that's fine. No, that's fine. I understand how this business works. But anyway, they've evacuated the UN building, the Sears Tower in Chicago, all the skyscrapers in Boston, Cleveland, Minneapolis, Seattle, Space Needle. In Massachusetts and Maine, most state employees were sent home and state buildings shut down. By the way, the governor in Missouri, and I happened to be in Missouri, they said all state offices would stay open today. In Louisiana, the state police urged petrochemical and pipeline companies to be on the alert. In California, Governor Gray Davis has convened a meeting of the State Emergency Council and requested heightened security in all state buildings. In Los Angeles, the police went on tactical alert and mobilized an anti-terrorist division.
Maybe they'll drive 4 black APCs from East Germany into a neighborhood and spray 14 houses. That'll save us from the terrorists. This is the point I've been making, Derry. The Chinese military has the Long Beach Naval Base. They have the Panama Canal. Russians were given 12 islands off the coast of Alaska by Clinton. But it's us that are the enemy with Grandpa's shotgun in the closet. It's moms in minivans. And out of this whole thing, we're seeing the end of America. You're going to see a police state like you've never seen it before after this. And only the global elite stand to gain from this, regardless of whether Bin Laden or the Easter Bunny did this. This is so sophisticated, only the CIA or an agency of that power could pull that off. And we've got the British putting out misinformation right now. Derry Brownfield, what is your bottom line analysis? What's your gut level feeling on all of this? Who do you think's behind it?
Well, you know, as far as I can't name names and give telephone numbers. But as I mentioned earlier in this show, and I have said it thousands of times on the air, I read the back of the book. And I'm referring here to the Holy Scriptures. I tried to get Hal Lindsey on earlier this morning to see what he thought about it, and I couldn't reach him. But we know that we're going to have a one world order, a new world government. We know it's coming. We know the Antichrist is in the wings, standing by.
Oh, yes.
Who he is, I don't know who he is, but he certainly does have the power to clean all this mess up and make it wonderful. So we will have peace, and that's going to be his pitch.
We're seeing the EU rise as the EU money flows into Europe, Eastern Europe, into Africa as the currency gold-backed. The dollar began to plunge last week. The markets crashing all over the place, and suddenly the center of the world's financial system in New York literally collapses.
You see, I was surprised that it was the World Trade Towers, and that was it. I honestly have expected all of this time for New York to just disappear, and I go back to the scriptures that Babylon shall fall in one day. But, maybe
well,
more
we
is
know
coming.
Babylon is the Federal Reserve financial system.
Is behind this.
Yes.
Well, the international bankers, yes.
Well, Derry, will you stay with us? Because I want to, speaking of the devil, speaking of the financial system, will you stay right there? I want to bring Ted Anderson up, who's got all the news wires there.
Right. Can I take about a 2-minute break? I'm just going to lay the phone down, and I'll be right back.
We'll put you on hold and bring you right back up. Let's go to Ted Anderson, owner of Genesis Communications and of Midas Resources, who's put up with me screaming at him all morning. I am very upset about all of this. My testosterone level is flowing just like yours are out there. Ted Anderson, God bless you, sir, for providing this network and a place for people to get accurate information. What's happening financially?
Well, obviously, there's a lot of crazy mixed-up emotions going on in all the markets right now. With the World Trade Center, that is where gold and silver trades in the United States. It's the largest market for gold and silver, grains, anything that you see. If you ever went to watch, if you know anything about the futures market, that's where the futures market used to happen. And obviously is now closed, and it says that it'll close, will not open until further notice, is what it says on the thing. The London gold market is going up. There's a lot of things that are happening right now. The silver market is right now at 432. It seems rather calm, but it's a big crapshoot right now. There's a lot of people that are very concerned, and of course, what are the paper markets and how are they going to react to this particular?
And we know that those are the most speculative markets. Some of them leverage not 20 to 1, but 100, 150 to 1. This is pandemic. Ted Anderson, any other financial information?
Well, yeah. As a matter of fact, to give you a little bit of a brief update on what's going on in the precious metals market, because that's where I am. That's what we do here at Midas Resources. Most of my suppliers have shut down, and they said, we can't sell you right now. We've sold everything out, and we don't know where the markets are going to open up at. We got a few suppliers that are still open, but it's very amazing to me to watch this happen. I've never experienced this in the 23 years now that I've been in the business, where the markets have actually been shut down like this and won't open up until further notice.
And the borders are now sealed. Federal troops are taking control of downtown cities under security arrangements.
Well, obviously, Alex, a major concern right now is for the people that are sitting there in the paper wondering what's going to happen. They've got their life savings tied up, and here you have chaos. And hopefully the market stays stable and they can get out with reasonable cost.
Yeah, I'm told that there are already giant lines forming at the banks.
Well, there's a bit of a stampede going on here at Midas Resources, and if you've been calling in on the 800 number, please be patient. We've got a lot of people working them, but you will be taken care of. There's a lot of people that are looking to have gold right now with the markets shut down. Obviously, in the United States, it's going to be much tougher to buy the stuff. Not every option is open to you anymore. So if you are calling in, do that. Just be patient.
Well, the EU is rolling out with a 15 to 30% gold-backed currency, and we have a fiat paper currency here. And the reason we can still buy cheap goods is because that dollar was the world reserve currency. Well, the fiat currency of choice. Now it is imploding. Ted, watching the World Trade Centers collide, what was it like for you? Was it surreal for you as it was for me to watch them implode like that?
Oh, it was. I tell you what, it wasn't a whole lot different looking than watching a building that's been, demolition building where they blow them up and they implode.
That's what the engineer just said on the show.
Yeah, the only difference I can see with this one is this one looked more like it was peeling apart like a banana. I'd like to see the damage that happened to the buildings that are surrounding it. My heart goes out to all the victims. It just makes me sick. It really does. And it's hard for me to comprehend because I'm so far away. We have Chris Markowski, who had called in a little earlier.
Ted, hold on 1 second. We are about to break. We're not running our ads. If you want to run yours.
We're not going into this particular ad here, so just keep right on going.
Yeah, just to let the stations know if you want to break, go ahead. I don't think you probably would want to. Nobody else is. Ted, we're going to get Chris Markowski, who was right across the river from it, back on. We're going to have Jim Wright, who was in the building next door and got out, a family friend of mine. We're going to have others checking in. It's good to know that we're on an emergency military channel at 9320 right now, broadcasting to the troops. Ted, I've been predicting this, haven't I?
Yeah, you sure have been talking about it quite a bit, and there's no question about it in my mind right now. Whoever blew up the Trade Center, I don't know, but I know one thing for sure. It's just like the Oklahoma City bombing or when the kids were shot in the schools out there. There's always legislation to take away more American freedoms. Now, folks, think about that before you start supporting, the effort. We do need to support our troops. Somebody is going to have to defend this nation, but let's keep a close eye on the New World Order.
Yeah, we're now getting information that it looks like that plane that was blown up at the airport outside Pittsburgh may have had terrorists on board, and that it was taken out. We know F-16s are all flying around. We got F-16s flying around above Austin right now to shoot down any planes. This is pandemic. And again, the Pentagon was attacked, the Pentagon on fire. Now a World Trade Center building, one of the sub-buildings, a 50 to 60-story building. Our eyewitnesses report is on fire, ladies and gentlemen. And it doesn't, Peter Jennings, look like this is all rehearsed. Well, they did rehearse this just a few months ago, according to the Associated Press. And I have the script from Fox Television, from the Lone Gunman TV show about 4 months ago, the only Lone Gunman I ever watched. I told Violet, go to Fox's website, see if they have it. Now, Lone Gunman had a story where a secret government body had remote control 747s and were trying to crash them. Ladies and gentlemen, this is unbelievable, into the World Trade Center. Talk about throwing it in your face. The script of that show is posted on Infowars.com. Now, with the World Trade Center bombing in 93, repeat, October 28th, 93, article in the New York Times admitted the feds trained the drivers, built the bomb, and let the bombing go forward. Mr. Salam recorded the FBI chief telling him to do it with FEMA. I mean, we have got the smoking gun on this one. Whether they use Islamic terrorists, no telling. This is from MSNBC breaking news. Bin Laden comes home to roost. His CIA ties are only the beginning of a woeful story. CIA. He was a CIA darling. His family sits on Iridium satellite board. Osama bin Laden is a minion of the New World Order. His family builds all of the military bases in Saudi Arabia. To this day, gets the contracts. He is a CIA boy. And here is MSNBC, New York. At the CIA, it happens often enough to have a code name. Blowback, simply defined. This is the term that describes an agent, an operative, or an operation that is turned on its creators. Osama bin Laden, our new public enemy number one, is the personification of blowback. And the fact that it is viewed as a hero by millions of Islamic world leaders proves again the old image, the old adage, you reap what you sow. So here's MSNBC posted, bin Laden is a CIA asset. Ted, any comments on that?
Well, it just drives me crazy with the stuff that I see in poll in this country, and nothing surprises me anymore, Alex. But the thing about this is I hate speculating. I like to see a little bit more evidence before I can step forward and say I think this is the place that's doing it. The thing that really concerns me, whether if this is a terroristic attack from some other country, and whether if it's orchestrated by our government or not. The thing about it is that the results are the same. We got to watch for the results.
Yeah, who stands to gain? Who has the motive? Who has been telling us that this is going to happen? Give up our rights. Who is training the police to drive buses on citizen pickups? Confirmed with bus company employees on last Friday night's show that I did. Who is building FEMA camps? And who has been making the prediction? I have that all of this would happen. I'm not saying George Bush even knows what's happening. I'm not saying the senators are behind it. I'm saying the intelligence agencies create these monsters, and they let the monsters bomb the World Trade Center in 93. That is not speculation. That was in the New York Times. And I've made a film. I've had General Parton on this show. I've had countless others, police detectives, who will tell you Oklahoma City was a government bombing. Now, I'm asking the people out there, if they nuke Iraq or they nuke Pakistan or they nuke Afghanistan, you're going to have this incredible nationalistic fervor, and it's going to sweep everybody into it. Anybody that doesn't go along with it is going to be an enemy. Well, so let me say now, I support this government. I support whoever they nuke. I support FEMA camps. I support the takeover. How's that? I can be on ABC Nightly News now, Ted.
Well, Alex, now, just using that as a thought, now, I just had one of the guys step in, and there's a lot of people that are calling in that are concerned about the markets and what's going on. We will be keeping you posted at MidasResources.com. If you do have some questions about it and what's going on and when the markets are going to be open and how your portfolio could be doing and how is this affecting it, you can call our representatives if you'd like. You don't have to do any transactions. That's not what this is about, but you can call 1-800-686-2237. That's 1-800-686-2237. We'll keep you posted on what's going on. Alex, I got a lot of things that I've got to cover. You're doing a great job. Hopefully we can find a few more experts, a few more people that are in the field that are looking at it, and get them up here, and let's get some explanation there.
All right, Ted Anderson, thank you. And Ted has been in, he's all registered with every stock thing you can imagine in gold, and financial news is really what he covers. And I tune into the Midas Report from 4 to 5 Central today. We've got Derry Brownfield on the line. Derry, I appreciate you holding. He is the host of one of the longest-running talk shows in the country. How long have you been broadcasting on the radio, Derry?
Well, I go back to broadcasting all the way back to the early 1960s.
Have you ever seen anything this big or this bizarre since World War II?
Well, no, of course not. No one else has either. But as I mentioned earlier on your show, for those that are just now tuning in perhaps, this really did not shock me. Now, when the first airplane we watched here on television, is just as I was coming into work this morning, when the first airplane hit the Trade Center, an airplane hit the Trade Center. When the second one did, I knew immediately what had taken place.
Well, absolutely. I would tell everybody, make sure you've got your cars full of gas, make sure you've got plenty of food, those water filters. If the martial law stuff starts cranking up, I'm going to go over to my parents' house, grab my dad around the scruff of the neck and say, you're leaving the country, and you're taking my little sister out of here now who's 16 years younger than me and who's in high school. You're getting out of here and you're leaving now. You're going to Costa Rica now. And I'm going to stay here and I'm going to fight for this country, for the United States, against Arab terrorists or anybody else. Derry Brownfield, will you stay with us?
You bet I will.
All right. Infowars.com for all the updates and all the news. Pilot's got 50 articles posted, the newest analysis. Everything's shutting down, the borders, you name it. Martial law is here, and we're not going to let them get away with it. We'll be back in 60 seconds.
Hey folks, Alex Jones here. And the behavior of our police is a reflection of our government. One look in the mirror and we know our country is entering a high-tech police state. Here's just a sample.
Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
It's just like Ted Anderson said in the last break. No matter who did this, some filthy Arab terrorist, part of this world government that founded the CIA and the NSA and the rest of it, read your history books. Don't let them give you a police state out of it. We have the power, the American people, to all police agencies and military. I know that 75% of the military is awake to what's happening. About half the cops are. We need to pray for the people that have died. Our hearts go out to their families. And I would just pray here on the air, Lord, heal our land. We seek your face. We want this land to be healed. We don't want to be part of an evil system. We want our country to be brought back to its former decency. And please, God, we pray that no biological attacks are engaged in, as the government has been predicting would happen in Fox and ABC in the last month that I've read, where they talk about 1 to 4 million dead, and the fake Nightline newscast they did last year where they talked about 50,000 dead and martial law. They've been talking so much about this, Lord, as you know. Please heal this land. Please put a protective hedge up against America. We are so sorry for the abortion and the infanticide and the support of China and giving them the Olympic Games when they kill political dissidents and sell their organs. We're so sorry that George Bush came back from Russia 2 months ago and said he looked into Vladimir Putin's eyes and saw a man with a soul he could trust and a man of love. When Vladimir Putin has press conferences taking 30,000 slaves from North Korea in the BBC for payment for a $5 billion debt. We didn't do that, Lord. We're fighting it as hard as we can. Please protect the good people of this country. Amen. Gary Brownfield, would you agree with that?
Well, yes, I will. But let me say this, and I mentioned this on my own show today. It's difficult for me, Alex, to pray for America anymore. Now, that sounds unpatriotic, and I can pray for God's people. That's a totally different group of people. I'm not sure we have too many of God's people left in this country. But it's difficult for me to see that God could ever bless America when our own school children in the government schools are not allowed to stand up and sing, God bless America. Then how can he do it?
Again, we have 4 planes confirmed, slamming into Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, slamming into the Pentagon. Of course, 2 slamming into the World Trade Center buildings that collapsed about an hour after, 45 minutes after they were hit.
I have a news release here that we might share with our listeners,
okay,
Alex.
Please.
FEMA has now responded to the terrorism attack. FEMA is now working closely with the White House and other federal agencies to provide assistance following several apparent terrorism attacks. That's almost the understatement of the day, isn't it?
Yes.
High-level meeting between senior officials in all federal agencies and the Vice President and Condoleezza Rice are underway. FEMA has activated its operations center. All federal agencies play a role to respond to the effects of these attacks as part of the federal response plan, and FEMA will coordinate these efforts on behalf of President Bush. So far, we have not heard from President Bush, have we?
No, he's on board Air Force One.
Yeah, but he can talk. He's got a phone. I'll bet Air Force One has a cell phone in it.
It actually has a satellite uplink sticking off the bottom.
I know that. What I'm saying is he could have...
he can broadcast nationwide on TV from Air Force One.
You know, let's go back another year or two. I was one of the people back a year and a half ago, whenever Y2K was, you know, at the turn of the century, that believed that this was going to be, and I honestly thought, deep in my heart, that we were going to see something of this nature happen at the turn of the century, maybe even on New Year's Eve.
But that was just a pretext for them to put in their FEMA bunkers, their FEMA command centers.
That's absolutely right.
Y2K was the cover for them to put in the military control grid.
Why didn't they go ahead and do it that night? Because the world was ready for it.
Also, Vladimir Putin had just taken power. Yeltsin had disappeared. A lot of power jockeying was going on.
But I still believe that this is the plan that they had for Y2K.
Russian troops, and then the 2 media moguls got arrested, and the TV station radio network got taken over by Ted Turner.
Are they going to try to silence Alex Jones?
Well, I know this. Ted Turner, they arrested the media heads in Russia, the 2 private groups, and Ted Turner took over. So, see, Jane Fonda does. No, they're not going to be able to do that here. I mean, I walked into a grocery store this morning while it was going on to grab something right down the street. Everybody's going, Alex, it's the government. It's the government. I had like 20 people around me. So they can't get away with it. There's too many people. There's too many networks. There's too much force out there. Most people in government don't even know what's behind this. We don't know if the government did it. We don't know if they provocateured it. It may be bin Laden's crowd. But bottom line, we know bin Laden was a CIA asset. MSNBC on Infowars.com. Bin Laden comes home to roost. His CIA ties are only the beginning of the story. MSNBC posted. That's on Alex Jones. Are they going to shut down MSNBC? So we gave him Stinger missiles. We gave him weapons. We gave him bombs. It may just be bin Laden. We don't know, Derry.
Now, I mentioned this earlier on your show, but I have some information here that they say the news is all over Europe, but not here in the United States, that some Afghanistanians killed bin Laden a couple of days ago.
Yeah, that's being reported by the BBC. Derry, what do you think we should all do during this situation? What should families be doing right now?
Well, I'd say a lot of this depends, of course, of all, the first thing you're going to do is ask for some divine guidance. But I think a lot of it depends upon where you are. I'm just glad that I live out in the sticks and the hills and the hollers, and I'm not in New York City. You're in Austin, Texas. That's not as bad as New York City,
yeah,
but it's not as good as Sandy Hook, Missouri.
Let me tell you something. 2 months ago, they sealed Fort Hood. It's bigger than Dallas and Fort Worth put together north of Austin. They got nuke bases, underground facilities there. They sealed Fort Hood. They sealed Fort Knox. They sealed 100 other military bases.
Here in Missouri, and I don't have the story, but I heard one of our newscasters make the comment that, you see, Fort Leonard Wood is in Missouri. And one of our newscasters made the comment that everybody was under. Well, Jeff just walked in. Do you remember what they said, Jeff, about the ID at Fort Leonard Wood?
You can bring Jeff up if you'd like. What's going on?
100% ID verification.
Okay, go ahead.
A new process put in. In other words, you used to could just drive right through the base. Anybody that wanted to could go any place on the base just like you were in another town. That's all stopped. And that stopped a couple of weeks ago.
Yes, and then we find out Friday that City of Austin police are trying to drive the buses on routes to people's homes. Mr. Brownfield, how does that factor in?
Well, that looks like the gun collection, doesn't it?
Certainly does.
I don't know. I don't know. What people would they pick up?
They're not telling us. We haven't confirmed. I mean, I had the bus people on the air.
What did the bus people say?
The union is just hopping mad. Well, they say it's a violation of every contract, and that they're telling them that the police don't even need a commercial vehicle or large vehicle operator's license. They're giving them just emergency training to drive city buses on routes and teaching them the routes around Central Texas.
Okay, here's a couple of other news releases. American Airlines reports it's lost 2 aircraft. American Flight 11, Boeing 767, flying from Boston to L.A. had 81 passengers and 11 crew aboard. Flight 77, a Boeing 757, en route from Washington's Dulles Airport to Los Angeles, had 58 passengers and 6 crew members aboard. 11:16 a.m. this morning, CNN reported that the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is preparing bioterrorism teams to respond to the incident in a precautionary move. The preparation is not based on any known bioterrorism threat. Here's another one. FEMA is working closely with the White House and other federal agencies to provide assistance following several apparent terrorism attacks today. High-level meetings between I mentioned that earlier. FEMA has activated its operations center, and that's about all I have just at this moment.
All right. Gary Brownfield, will you call back in, or can we call you in about another 20 or 30 minutes to get more updates from you?
Okay, then I'm going to have to leave by within the next hour. I'll have to leave.
All right,
I have another meeting I have to attend.
We'll check in with you in about 20 minutes. Then,
okay, good enough.
God bless you, sir.
You bet.
All right, let's go ahead and bring Ted Anderson, owner of Genesis Broadcasting, back up on the air, and then we will start going to some calls. If you'd like to join us on air with your comments, your take, what you've seen on the news. I'm sitting there watching the news this morning, and they report it's a government plane that smashed into it. I mean, no telling what's going on out there. You're our eyes and ears. 1-800-686-2237.
Just on it, Alex, just a real quick update. I did have a customer that was looking to wire some funds, and, it's hard to tell what's going on out there, but asked their bank to wire funds over to the account here, and the bank said that they had suspended all wire transactions.
So that's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing big lines at the bank, too.
Yeah, I think they're probably trying to avoid a bank run. With fractional reserve banking, there's only about 6% of the money that's actually on deposit. It won't take too many people to show up at the door to try to draw it out. And if you're transferring money out of accounts, of course, that greatly affects it as well. So financially, the powers that be, which are not the government, but the private institutions that run the financial system here, are right now taking precautions to try to stop a run from happening. But just a quick understanding is that there is not a people go in, they make deposits, the banks lend them out. They keep about 6% on hand for anybody who wants to take money out.
Yeah, 90+% of it's all digital. The money doesn't even exist in cash form.
Right. So,
I frankly don't even hardly want to talk about this because it could cause something, but we have to. We have to bring people the news and information. Ted, this gets scarier and scarier by the minute.
Well, and the thing about it is perhaps we've been very speculative here in this country, and we've been living on the edge for quite some time, and we've always expected that we'd always be safe and nothing could ever happen on our borders. But obviously things can happen on our borders. So, a bit of caution out there. I just want to let people know.
And the borders are shut down right now.
Yeah, it's travel is going to be. I've heard a lot of things, and I like to confirm what's going on. But I've heard that that there are checkpoints being set up. I've heard that there's limitations on various different things. But one of the major concerns to me is that this is something that financially could affect every listener out there right now.
Yeah, setting checkpoints up in rural America, that'll stop the Islamic terrorist.
Yeah, well, anyways, Alex, I just thought I'd give a quick update on that. I'll try to keep an eye on the financial markets and let you know what's going on.
Ted, thank you so much. We're going to check back in a little bit later with Jim Wright, one of my good friends who lives out in Fredericksburg, Texas, but half the year lives in New York and worked at the World Financial Center next door. And actually saw the first plane slammed in. They felt it. They were outside and saw the second one hit at about the 75th floor as the building exploded, caught fire, and then collapsed 45 minutes later. The Pentagon has had a large fixed-wing aircraft crash into it, also outside of Pittsburgh, PA. The airport was hit by a plane, may have been shot down by F-16s or other fighter jets. The borders have been sealed. And they're basically declaring civil emergency all over the country, and federal troops are making their way into your capitals of your states. I thought they'd use foot and mouth to get this done. They passed martial law provisions. That's not rumor. That's fact on my website in the foot and mouth section. They said if foot and mouth was released, people would have to stay indoors, and the Army would bring you food. Yeah, right. Logistically, they could do that. And notice they've cut our military back to nothing, and then small portions of it have been left as security agencies. To everybody in government, speak the truth, stand up to what's happening, find out who's responsible, and make them pay. Frankly, we probably never will find out who's responsible, but talking to Jim Wright, who's not just a big financial guru, he's also has an engineering degree. That building was brought down with shape charges, precision, collapsing. At the top, some of it peeled off, and then suddenly the whole thing just collapsed top down, and then the other one collapsed top down in about 5 to 10 seconds. That just doesn't happen. This just gets more and more bizarre by the minute. We are living history right now, and I am honored to be your host. I'm so thankful for Genesis and Liberty Works and all of our other AM and FM affiliates across the country, WWFV, Global Shortwave, at 12.172 and 9320 emergency frequency to all the military out there in upper single sideband, and, of course, M2KTalk.com. We've just tripled our record listenership here as people are hungry for the truth and the accuracy in what's developing. And I'm engaging in a lot less speculation in the mainstream media. But here I am reading an NBC news story. Bin Laden comes home to roost. His CIA ties are only the beginning of a woeful story. You reap what you sow. Why is his family on the board of Iridium Satellite? Why do they get the contracts after bombings to rebuild the buildings in Saudi Arabia supposedly bombed by the wicked son, Bin Laden? Why was he given Stinger missiles? I mean, are they going to tell us like TWA Flight 800 they don't know who did this? And then we just sit here and no one pays for it? And we get more and more surveillance society? There were hearings coming up in a couple of weeks about the surveillance society. We reported yesterday. What's going to happen now with that? Violet is perpetually updating Infowars.com with all the latest developments. They had a lone gunman show on Fox, their X-Files show, variant show, 4 months ago that I saw on a Sunday night. And it actually showed the government, a secret group in the government, controlling the planes by remote control and trying to crash a huge jumbo jet into the side of the World Trade Center. You see, let's say Bin Laden did this, or let's say the Easter Bunny did it, or the moon, the men from the moon, whoever did it. This horrible tragedy. Whoever engaged in this. Why does the media continually hype terrorism? Why do they continually promote all of this? Why are they continually peddling this and telling the world how vulnerable we are in the newspapers and how we're wide open? The old rule on terrorism is don't give terrorists attention. Don't talk about your weak points. Don't talk about the main targets. That's all we see in the news wires every day. Inviting Arab terrorists to attack. Inviting communist terrorists to attack. And what did Bill Clinton do before he left office? He released 16 members of the FALN convicted of 130 mass bombings of police and military installations and FBI offices, killing dozens, injuring thousands. No fanfare, just release them. Release them. Release known bombing masterminds. They didn't hype those bombings up in the 70s and 80s when they did them. They ignored them like you're supposed to. Then Clinton releases them. Think about that. Think about that long and hard. Who stands to gain from all of this? Now, I know we skipped the break, and I have some developing news here in front of me. Let's go to about 2 minutes of Renegades, and I'm going to read over some of this newest developments. Then we're going to come back and go straight to your calls. If you would like to join us online, toll-free number to do so, 1-800-259-9231. I actually gave the minus number out because I'm just so flustered. We will continue to cover this. President Bush spoke briefly earlier today, addressing people on education. Looks like he's going to be addressing the nation here pretty soon. We'll see if we're going to cover that. I'm sure our stations will break away and cover Bush bringing the country together up there, keeping us safe. All right, so I'll be back in 2 minutes, and we will go straight to your calls. This is Genesis Broadcasting Worldwide, the 11th of September, 2001, smack dab in the middle of the New World Order takeover.
From Nazareth he came with a ragtag band to bring a revolution. Some would make him king, others couldn't stand for that. The cross was a solution, but he rose again. Wise men follow him, but he rose again. Wise men follow him. Thank God for the renegade and the lions they lead. Bloody war and liberty for their descendants. Thanks to the renegades for free today. Thanks to the renegades for free today. Thank God for the renegades and the lives they lead far ahead of their time. Without the renegades,
and gentlemen, back live. As you know, the Pentagon was kamikaze attacked by a large airliner of some type. The World Trade Center, both towers have collapsed, hit by 2 planes this morning. Other plane crashed at the International Airport outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We're about to go to your calls a little bit later. Check in with Jim right there on the ground in New York. He was in the building right next door. One of my good friends. We can vouch for everything he says here on the air. People jumping out of the buildings, burning, smoking bodies falling out. Top news, ladies and gentlemen. I just saw McCain on CBS saying that we are going to have to change the way we live our lives and give up a bunch of our rights for security, and that things will never go back to the way they were. And he's out there peddling it. They have the feds taking over central areas of downtown cities and capitals confirmed. This is the New World Order. And look for them in the next few weeks to say we need to turn in our guns so the terrorists don't blow up buildings. It'll be something along those lines. Regardless of who did this, only Big Brother stands to gain. I repeat, John McCain, not a question of if, but when this was going to happen. We're going to have to change the way we live our lives and give up our rights. And police will feel just fine searching your car at the checkpoints and your papers and your digital thumb scan, your face scan, because we've got to keep America safe. So we could be watching the death of America because of this terrorist bombing, giving into the terrorism, giving you and your family a nightmarish police state. We're not going to back down, globalist. Understand that. We're going to find out who did this, and we're going to expose you. That's why Oklahoma City and the World Trade Center being government events were so important. That's why James Bamford, best-selling author, 2020 executive, the Baltimore Sun story on Infowars.com, that the feds wanted to blow up airliners, bomb buildings as a pretext to invade Cuba in '62. Kennedy said no. That's why I cover that so much on this show. Now have courage, have honor, know that most people in government are good and decent, but they're going to be blinded by this and get into an absolute frenzy. The good news is they don't have the infrastructure for anything massive. Thank God we do have the infrastructure that is against the people to stop any planes, to shut them down. But now they're clamping down the borders, you name it. Now let's go ahead and take some calls. An attack on America, folks. That's what's happening. Wyatt in Maryland, we have predicted it.
Absolutely.
And now it's happening. Go ahead.
Right. Okay. I'm watching Washington, D.C. Channel 9, and it's showing the Pentagon. It's got a massive split. If you know how the Pentagon's shaped, it's just a big chunk taken right out of it. They reported that 26 people were injured. They haven't said any deaths as of yet.
Thank God. That's low numbers now.
That's right. Okay. Now listen. You predicted this. We didn't realize. We always said, well, they'll incrementally have been successful. We said, well, one day they'll come down. The only reason they haven't come down with a big hammer is because we have guns. Well, this is the big hammer. This is the entire destruction of this nation as we know it. Everything we do from now on will be entirely different, Alex. Everything we do.
That's what McCain is saying.
That's right. Now I work for BWI Airport. And I go past the Pentagon all the time, and I often say, my God, the Pentagon is just wide open for attack. But besides that. Now, listen, Alex, I'm not a Bible thumper at all, okay? But just listen to me for a second, please, because everyone listening can take their Bibles and look at this. Revelations 17 describes exactly what's taking place right now, at this very moment, what happened in New York. Now, if you take the airlines...
Well, read it to us.
Okay. Oh, my God, Alex, it's too long. It's huge. I mean, it's lots of words.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, here are the flight numbers: Flight 11, Flight 77, Flight 175, and Flight 33. Now, numbers is a language just like our language.
Yeah, 33. The occultists at Bohemian Grove and all of this are obsessed with it.
Okay. You take these numbers and you add them together, and you get a total of 296. Now, you take 2 plus 9 is 11, plus 6 is 17. And in Revelation 17, it describes what's taking place. Now, I have no idea if it's coincidence or whatever, but still the numbers are there. The language is there. This, as your guest indicated, I watched that building come down time and time again, and I said, That's an implosion. There's no way that building could do what it did. This was designed. I told my friends, I told everybody I know. I said, no, I'm not accusing anyone. Just listen. I'm not accusing anyone. I said, President Bush is not in Crawford, Texas for a third.
They've never put them on like they should.
You got it right. You got it right. And so it was planned. But look, those buildings are designed to prevent that from happening. I agree with you. There's something wrong. There was a progressive explosion process that brought those buildings down.
Well, we had the engineer on to talk about it. And those buildings went straight down. John, what do you see happening? They're really gearing up.
Oh, yeah. Life has changed. I don't think we can accept what we've expected. I don't think that there's anything new to make of all of this. It's the world turned upside down.
So what are you going to do?
I'm going to clean my weapon, man. I'm going to clean my weapon. My problem, my only worry is that I don't want to go alone. I'm not afraid to go, but I just don't want to go by myself. These people, these government agents, they ought to be ostracized. First, they ought to be identified, and then their pictures and posters ought to be publicly displayed. They ought to be ostracized in the church and everywhere else.
John, I appreciate your call. We don't know if the government did this. We know they did the other ones. We know they kept telling us it was going to happen, and we know who stands to gain. I know this, though, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not going to any FEMA center. What about you? We kept warning you about this over and over again. We weren't playing games, and now it's unfolding in front of your face. All the latest news from everywhere is on Infowars.com. Oh, my goodness. And you talk about patriotism. I'm the ultimate patriot. I love this country. I fight for it every day. There's going to be a patriotism whipped up to attack the Middle East, a total invasion, Iran, Iraq, you name it, Pakistan, Afghanistan. It came out a few weeks ago, WorldNet Daily, ABC, that Bush was preparing for a ground war with Iraq. And, you know, there's one person that might be able to pull this off, but everything he does is tapped and traced, and that is Saddam Hussein. Why this government ever put him in power in the 70s, why he was our big buddy to fight Iran, why he was given the chemical and biological weapons from Houston. If Saddam did do this, and there is a chance that this is not the government, that it is Saddam Hussein, I want that country nuked, and I want it nuked now. And the question is, why didn't they take Saddam out in 1991? I ask you that question! What did you just say, Mark? And General Parton's not home? Busy signal. Whoever's calling Parton, please quit. When I mentioned that, everybody probably called him. Just keep trying, Mark. Then we'll get Terry Brownfield back on, and then Jim right there at the scene in New York. Let's go ahead. For those that don't know, we've had planes crashing in plane crashed in the Pentagon. It blew up and was on fire outside Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania at the International Airport. A huge plane crashed and blew up on the runway. We had two planes. The first one's this morning, one at 8:50 Eastern Time, hit the World Trade Center. A larger plane at 9:20. And then the towers began imploding about an hour later. So that's what's developing there. 10:15 Eastern, World Trade Center South Tower collapses. 10:30 Second Tower North collapses. And now they've got civil emergency, just replace that with martial law, rolling in the country. My goodness. Bill in Tennessee, you're on the air. Thanks for holding.
That's Texas.
Okay, Texas. Go ahead, Bill.
Well, I don't see, first of all, I don't think this is government-sponsored. That's my opinion.
Okay.
Secondly, I don't see how an act like this is going to help with illegal immigration and the movement towards that. If anything, I think it's going to make people refocus on why illegal immigration is so bad.
Well, that's the point I've made. They tell us to give up our rights and drive through checkpoints when we live in the heartland, but then they've got the borders wide open and porous, and then have been advertising how open we are to terrorist attack. That in and of itself is a grand crime.
No question, and I think that people will get refocused on that, and I think they're going to have a really tough time modifying the law. I really don't see martial law being declared.
Sir, it's already civil emergency, and I've got dozens of the states
But Alex, this is a normal response to a major issue. I mean,
so are you in the military?
I used to be.
Okay.
I'm a retired officer.
Well, we support the military. Most of the troops I know agree with the analysis we have here. We don't know who's done this, but are you telling me Osama bin Laden could coordinate all of these 4 attacks?
Well, I'm telling you that there are lots of people who are mercenary for hire that have been in covert activities for many countries.
A mercenary's going to fly a plane into a building.
No, you didn't let me finish what I was saying. I believe that there are enough tentacles by organizations throughout the world and have enough finances and connections to pull off something like this.
I will say this. There's a good chance Europe could be behind this. They're rolling out their euro right now. It becomes the full currency in 2.5 months. And with the World Trade Center collapsing the center of the dollar and they're partially gold back with their euro, you might have a point there.
Well, I more think it's that than the U.S. government behind it. I really do.
Well, who controls and owns our Federal Reserve, though?
Well, the European family.
You got it. I'm not saying that that Ashcroft knows about this. These people don't run our country, sir. Big, giant tax-free foundations and the Council on Foreign Relations and the rest of them.
Well, I know the council in Rome, with all the families that go back from whenever, are the ones that call a lot of shots and have all the wealth and have been plotting this for years. There's no question.
And put Hitler into power. I mean, they torched Europe to get a UN. They failed with World War I to get the League of Nations.
Well, the only reason I say it's not a U.S. attack, Alex, is simply that it appears to me, by all the things I've seen and read, and they looked a little caught off guard by this, quite frankly.
Yeah, Bush looked pretty freaked out, didn't he?
He did. Well, keep sending the message out. Thanks for taking my call.
All right, I appreciate the call. I know this, that little creature McCain, that Manchurian candidate who turned against the men in the plantation, he wasn't in the Hanoi Hilton, has been dancing around telling us we need a police state, and now I got him on tape. I got to go change the tape during the next break on the VCR. I got that creature on tape saying we'll never live the same, got to give up our rights. Who's up next here, Mark? John in Washington State, you're on the air, sir. Welcome.
Hi, Alex. I just thought I'd tell you what was going on up here. The sheriff just declared Spokane on special alert, and they're claiming that we're going to be highly scrutinized. They say that they have their operatives keeping close eyes on all those Patriot types. And I have another little goodie for you. Last Friday, I was coming home from a doctor's appointment and saw a strange parade going down the road. It was a bunch of APCs. They weren't National Guard, they were Army. And they had huge generators, the kind that you use to power small cities. They had several of them. They had a tanker truck following that, so I followed them. And I followed them for about 35, 40 miles. And then they go to a place called Missile Site Road. They pull in. I was really unfamiliar with the area, but I had been around there before. And then right down towards the end of the road, they fanned out, threw up a roadblock, and two guys got out of a black pickup truck and one out of a white Astro van, dressed in navy blue poplin, Cambridge-style jackets and slacks, and they had Tech DC-9s.
Well, I sure wish you'd have had a video camera.
I got pictures. I took photographs.
Overnight
I took photographs of everything except where they pulled out the weapons, because at that point, frankly, I was hauling these loins in another direction. I spun my truck around, threw gravel all over them, and left right between the two of them. My wife, actually, a week before, saw tanks out there at the same place when she was riding her 10-speed bike. I did see that they had other generators set up out there.
We have Czechoslovakian troops over the last 3 years massing in Texas. We have military checkpoints on video on Infowars.com. Just watch the clips for free.
Oh, yeah. I've seen them, and I've got your tapes as well. But I'm also the fellow that occasionally calls you. I'm a commissioner up here. And so they drew down on me, and I went down this morning and tendered my resignation. I'll not be part of any of this or even be mildly associated with it.
You should have stayed in to, help warm
Oh,
people.
no. They treat me like dirt anyway. No, they treat me terribly because I say all those stupid, nasty words like Constitution, Bill of Rights.
The stuff that gets buildings blown up.
Oh, yeah, well, I have no doubt that I'm being watched now, too, because the sheriff just said so on television. He said that he has his people out here watching all these patriot types closely. And also, I might tell you that at down here at Rock Point Center is one of our nicest office buildings. The FBI just threw out everybody in the executive suites and took the entire executive suites over, and they have moved over 200 additional new agents into this city, residing at Rock Point Center on Washington Avenue, and they've taken over the entire executive suite area. So I happen to have wheedled my way in there last Friday as well and got photographs of it. It's empty as a gourd, and I ran into two guys that were pulling fiber optic cable through the offices there, and they asked me what I was doing in there, and I had my trailer and a jumpsuit on, so I looked like I was a mover or something. And the guys asked me what I was doing in there, and I told them I kind of like one of those numbers you pulled at Bohemian Grove. I kind of had to think on my feet, and I said, I'm here for the desk. And the two guys said, oh, well, get that blankety-blank thing out of here. And they took me over there, and lo and behold, there was, in fact, a desk. And they made me take a desk out of the FBI office and put it in my truck and take it away. Now I've got the thing. They made me steal the desk. It was either that or get caught. But I got photographs of that, too. So,
sir, don't send me the originals. Do you have access to a computer to email them as a JPEG to alex@infowars.com?
Yeah, I'll do that.
I need the APCs now. Get on it, sir. I appreciate the call.
I've got another set of documents that I need to send you on disk that is the job roster from the internal communications of the military, and it's the job roster for the training of all the people that they're going to be needing and using to secure this, and it's called Red Train Opportunities. Does that ring a bell? The red and blue lists and so forth?
I don't know. Listen, I really appreciate the call, sir. Again, to recap, at 8:50 a.m. Eastern Time, plane hits World Trade Center. 8:20, FBI says at least one plane hijacked. 9:30, second jet crashes into the World Trade Center. 9:40 Eastern, plane hits Pentagon. Federal officials said a U.S. airplane has hit the Pentagon. The crash comes nearly an hour after two planes hit the World Trade Center building. Folks, this is 100 times bigger than Pearl Harbor. Why do you think all these films came out? Band of Brothers, all these war movies. Even a Washington Post writer said, were we getting ready for a war? This always happens. 10:13, all U.S. buildings, Capitol Hill evacuated. 10:15, World Trade Center South Tower collapses. 10:20, report, explosion at Capitol. 10:30, U.S. congressional leaders, top cabinet officials moving to secure facilities. 10:30, another hijacked plane reported 20 minutes south of Washington, D.C. 10:30, second tower north collapses. 10:43, hijacked plane crashes south of Pittsburgh, PA. Officials investigating at another hijacking with a plane headed toward D.C. Never heard what happened with that. Probably been shot down. 10:45 a.m. EDT. All federal buildings in D.C. have been evacuated. By the way, October 1st, all new cell phones have to have a satellite tracking chip in them. Been reporting on that for years. The children are already having the thumb scan to get their school lunches in 100-plus school districts. Come on, people. I'm not trying to scare you. Be bold. Stand up. They're not going to get away with this pretext. Let's go ahead and, before we go to more calls, let's get Derry Brownfield back on the line. But first, let's get Jim Wright on there in New York, who was in the World Financial Center next door, who heard the first plane hit, walked out and saw the second one hit, and then saw them collapse from a mile and a half away, dead bodies, people falling out of the windows. The whole 9 yards. I can't believe this is actually happening, but it is. I didn't make the stuff up when I told you it would here on the air. It is a travesty. Police, military, if you love your family, fine. Fight the enemy and we find out it's Arab terrorist. But they're going to tell us our whole society has to change now, that the people are the enemy. They're announcing that on the news. It is not going to help anything. You know, they'll have us running through checkpoints daily and having our houses searched. I guarantee you that southern border is going to stay open. And it's just a travesty. And Europe may be behind this. There is a fissure. There is an internal struggle between the New World Order right now. Germany runs the EU. They swore the annihilation of the U.S. They put people into power to take over this country. And it's in between Muslim terrorists being provocateurs and allowed to do this. It's in between our government doing it, and it's in between the EU doing it. Frankly, I'm starting to lean towards the EU and that power block that runs a lot of our news here. All right, let's bring Jim Wright up. Jim?
Yeah.
You were there today. Now World Trade Center 5 or 6 is burning. Another 50, 60-story building. What are you seeing there? What's happening?
Well, it's really about the same as last time we talked, Alex. That building's still burning about the same amount. We don't hear the sirens anymore that we were hearing earlier. It's just kind of settling in for the siege to see how long it takes to get the smoke out.
So that building is still on fire?
Still standing, still on fire.
I wondered if it's going to collapse in an instant like the other ones.
It's no way of knowing.
And again, you have a degree in engineering. Have you ever heard of a building that's on fire on the top collapsing with such precision?
No, I haven't. No.
Well, it's an absolute nightmare. Can you briefly recap what you saw this morning when the first plane hit and you heard the vibration, and then what happened, where you were?
Yeah,
with the second
sure. We saw the first building. It was on fire about the top 10 floors from 100 up. We were watching that for some time. Actually saw some bodies come out of the building. Some were smoldering, others were flailing and evidently conscious. After, 10 or 15 minutes, I caught the glimpse of I guess an airplane, just the tip of it, and saw a huge fireball come out of the building. At that time, we evacuated our building, which was across the street. Eventually made our way back across the river about a mile and a half away from the site when we watched first one building. It blew out from some of the other upper floors, almost like a ring of charges all the way around it. And within 5 seconds, the building was completely gone. It went straight down in a perfect implosion. About 20, 30 minutes, I guess, after that, pretty much the same thing happened to the second tower. That one took a few more seconds to come down, but it was just a perfect drop of a building. No stumps left, no nothing.
And from engineering, what does that?
It looks, like it was somehow detonated very heavily or very strategically from the lower floors.
So no one could get into the wreckage of those planes and find out the evidence of who was behind it. Just like Oklahoma City, they destroyed that building just a few weeks after, still standing, and buried it under guard at a landfill outside Oklahoma City.
Well, these buildings are landfill now. I have no idea what it looks like on the other side of the plaza see if any of the wreckage of the planes is left on top.
To me, it looked like Independence Day, sir.
It was a war. It was like Armageddon. Certainly like a movie. It just wasn't real.
It wasn't real. Unbelievable. Anything else you'd like to add, Jim Wright? What are the local security forces doing?
They obviously on high alert. We haven't seen too many military aircraft in the immediate vicinity. Just a couple of Tomcats circling around once or twice.
F-14s?
Yeah. Just a couple of them. They're not really circling. They were heading somewhere. All of the emergency personnel seem to be very heavily involved with getting people off the island, off of Manhattan Island. They're bringing them into our marina here at Liberty State Park, which is by the Statue of Liberty. and there's just kind of a flow of people coming from the ferry trying to make their way up towards the turnpike and the light rail system. I understand all the roadways or the main turnpike is shut down where it parallels the Manhattan.
People aren't able to get out?
They seem to be getting out somehow. I don't know if they're just walking or, exactly how they're doing it, but I can tell you that one of the main arteries, the New Jersey Turnpike, right here in the vicinity of being across the river from lower Manhattan, there is no traffic on that roadway.
They've shut the road down. Now they've shut the borders down. Why do you think they do that, Jim? They're on the scene.
The water. Excuse me?
Why do you think they'd shut down the roads?
I don't know if it's, I have no idea. I've heard nothing on the news whether or not it's to, get emergency vehicles through or, I honestly don't know. I don't own a vehicle, so.
And all the TV stations are down other than the Spanish-speaking language?
Yeah, the last time I checked, it's been a while since actually I've tried to flip through. I've been listening to emergency radio, VHF. It looks, we're still in the same situation with News Network TV.
Because the main antennas were on top of that building?
I presume that's what's happened, yeah.
Did you ever think you'd see this in the United States?
No, I really didn't. We've been kind of always, conditioned to believe this is the one place we haven't had any overt, at least foreign terrorism, and I'm presuming this is foreign. Who knows? Maybe it's internal, maybe not. But we feel pretty insulated against that kind of thing.
We're getting the
here.
analysis that it may be the EU. They're rolling out their new currency. It's already starting to throttle the dollar. They're distributing it as a world currency to Africa, Middle East, Asia, and then suddenly our financial center is brought down. We've been in 2 wars with Europe, and I have the EU Observer here from yesterday. French socialists developed European strategies and a new manifesto. They call for Europe first against the U.S. They call for international Tobin tax and UN expanded power. Frankly, the EU stands more to gain from this than any Islamic terrorist or this government. The more I look at it, you probably don't want to comment on that, do you?
Well, I'm sure there's probably a lot of people that would see themselves as gaining from a tragedy like this, and maybe that's a plausible one, and there's probably a lot of other plausible scenarios.
Well, I know you work in Europe in these financial sectors. The EU is pretty powerful.
Well, the EU is pretty powerful, but I tell you what, a lot of, at least in Europe, a lot of those countries are very, very dependent upon stability in the U.S. and U.S. currency flowing overseas. And I don't know, for everybody that may get helped by this, there's probably, a lot of entities or people that get hurt by it. So,
all right,
who knows?
Jim Wright, I will probably check in with you in another hour or so just for a quick 5-minute update. We really appreciate you, and you're really handling this in a calm fashion, frankly, better than I am, and I'm here in Austin, Texas.
Well, I don't know. Maybe that's your job. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, sure, Alex. I'll try to stick around.
All right. Thank you, sir. There goes Jim Wright, family friend. His family lives out in Fredericksburg, Texas, listening on 91.7. I want to say hi to the booths out there in the Wrights. We're going to continue with your calls throughout the broadcast. I want to thank Ted Anderson for the opportunity to cover this uncensored. I want to thank all our AM and FM affiliates. This is so important that we get the news and information out to everybody. And I will continue the broadcast for the next hour and 5 minutes, and then you'll have the John Stadtmiller with the National Intel Report. Then after that, the Midas Report. Dr. Stan Monteith will be live. Countless other excellent shows to bring you exactly what you need to know about the developments here and the analysis of some of the foremost experts in the country. I wanted to recap this. Bin Laden comes home to roost. His CIA ties are only the beginning of a woeful story. At the CIA, it happens often enough to have a code name, blowback. Simply defined, this term describes an agent, an operative, or an operation that has turned on its creators. Osama bin Laden, our new public enemy number one, is the personification of blowback. And the fact that he is viewed as a hero of millions of Islamic world proves, again, the old adage, you reap what you sow. MSNBC. Let's bring Gary Brownfield up. He's got to go to a meeting in a few minutes. Mr. Brownfield, any of the latest developments and your take on this, one of the biggest tragedies in American history?
Well, I have some information here. You know, we said earlier in the show, Alex, that the borders had been closed in Canada and Mexico. I have here some information. Let me see where it comes from. The FAA says 50 flights are in U.S. airspace, but none are reporting any problems. The Immigration and Naturalization Service says U.S. borders with Canada and Mexico are on highest state of alert, but no decision has been made about closing borders.
Well, that's funny. I have the AP story here where they say that.
Say they have closed the borders.
Well, I don't know. A lot of confusion.
Yeah, there is. San Francisco International Airport is evacuated and shut down.
Can you stay with us for 5 more minutes?
Sure, sure.
We'll be back in 60 seconds. Stay with us, ladies and gentlemen.
According to the news and medical journals, Americans are under assault from a new monster, fibromyalgia. Fibromyalgia affects millions with supposedly no real cure.
Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back live. We've got loaded phones. We're going to go to them. We've got Gary Brownfield, nationally syndicated radio talk show host. And we're also going to cover Bush's remarks from his nationally televised address. Going back to Gary Brownfield and into your calls. Mr. Brownfield, any other information that you've been tracking down or any other points you'd like to make about this attack?
Is that the San Francisco International Airport was shut down. The airport was the destination of American Airlines Flight 77, and that was one of the aircraft that went into the World Trade Center. And then L.A. International Airport, the destination of 2 of the hijacked American airline flights, is evacuated. The United Airlines confirms that Flight 175 from Boston to L.A. has crashed with 56 passengers and 9 crew members aboard. Emergency personnel at the scene say there are no survivors. Why are these airplanes crashing? Do you have any idea, Alex?
Now, is this a plane other than the 4 that went into the Trade Center?
I don't know.
Into Pittsburgh and into the Pentagon?
I don't have any idea.
Well, we know they've got fighter jets scrambled everywhere.
So they could have shot the thing down, you suppose?
Yeah, we'll probably never know. That's something they're not going to ever announce.
I have no idea.
I guess it'll be like TWA Flight 800. They'll just tell us that doesn't matter. We've got Army witnesses that you didn't see a missile. But frankly, I mean, that's a question. Would we support shooting down an airplane full of people that have been hijacked if it's going for a World Trade Center? And I have to say, frankly, yes. But at the same time, how many is it going to kill when it hits the ground in a population center?
Well, I was going to say, how many people were killed when it hit the World Trade Center? It certainly would have been better off shot down out over the harbor someplace, wouldn't it?
No, I agree with you wholeheartedly. So what are they going to do? Start stationing guys with Stinger missiles on top of buildings everywhere? I know I've seen video of the White House before with guys with Stinger missiles on the top.
I have no idea. I tell you what, I'm becoming sort of numb about this whole thing.
Oh, I am too. I've already been on the air 3 hours counting your show, and we're just going to continue to cover it throughout the day, Mr. Brownfield.
Jeff just walked in here. I'm going to let him take a moment to mark up some copy. Here's what he's saying. He says, in 1945, an Army Air Corps B-25, a twin-engine bomber, crashed into the 79th floor of the Empire State Building in dense fog. Didn't hurt the building, if you remember.
Yes.
I mean, you may not remember 1945, but I do.
Well, it's an old-fashioned building, yeah. It's a lot tougher.
But do you really believe that? It probably is. But I still don't believe that plane would have taken. In fact, when the planes hit those buildings, they didn't go down right away.
Hey, we had a guy on the show who's one of the witnesses who has an engineering degree. He says that looked like textbook explosives planted on the columns.
Yeah, I heard that. Here's another comment. The Navy has ordered a pair of aircraft carriers to depart the Norfolk, Virginia Naval Station and deploy off the coast of New York City and Washington to provide air cover to both cities in case of new threats following terrorist attacks. The President has no choice but to strike back, but the key questions are how and at whom. Bush must decide where to take revenge. I'm just reading some of the...
Just in, Tony Blair, British Prime Minister and admitted communist, has stopped all civil flights over the UK, but he's going to keep us safe. And Derry, stay right there because I want you to continue. This is Bush's comments. Bush promises to track down terrorists. It says Barksdale Air Force Base, Louisiana, as chaos unhinged New York and Washington. President Bush commanded the full force of the United States government to hunt down and find the terrorists responsible. Terrorism against our nation will not stand, he declared Tuesday. Yeah, if they don't attack somebody and level entire countries, will be attacked daily. In Florida, a pair of education speeches, the president scrapped his schedule and said that the first reports of attacks on New York came up on to the board and said that 9 stands for judgment and 11 for disorder.
Really?
And it shows how the globalists, everything is 33, everything is 7-11, all of these occultic numbers.
That makes sense as well.
I'm not making this stuff up, folks. I mean, look at all this. Look at the flight numbers, 33 and...
Flight 800 also. Flight 800 is one of them. I recall hearing a Flight 800, didn't you?
Yeah, they do it over and over again. Derry Brownfield, this stuff gets weirder and weirder, but look at Skull and Bones, New York Observer, dressed up in devil outfits, slitting women's throats, and I don't want to get off into all of this, but you talked about it. This is judgment one way or another, isn't it?
Yes, it is, and it's like they're smacking us in the face with it.
Do we have Derry Brownfield there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Derry, any comments on what our guest is bringing up?
No, not really on the 911. I do have a little information on Israel here, that Israel is pledging aid to U.S. ally, call for an all-out war on terrorists. Israel pledged to give its full support to the United States and call for an all-out war on terrorism following the attacks on its leading ally on Tuesday. In a defensive move and following the U.S. example after the plane attacks, Israel closed its airport for airspace for 24 hours to all incoming flights. Prime Minister Ariel Sharon said the Jewish state was ready to provide the United States with all possible aid in talks with U.S. ambassadors.
And that means their nuclear weapons.
Well, I would assume so.
Yeah, we could see nuclear war within the day. In fact, I had a report last night that we covered that Israel's very upset, saying Iran now has nukes and the missiles to deliver them. It's just, folks, this could be the beginnings of Armageddon. I hate to say that, but we certainly have the ingredients, don't we, Derry?
Well, it looks like it, doesn't it? And you've heard me say time and time again, once you read the back of the book, you begin to see a different picture, and you look at the overall picture. I'd definitely say we are in the end time.
I believe it's right as well, Alec.
Now, when we talk about the end times to Christians, that doesn't mean the end. That means the start of the good stuff.
Yes.
You see what I mean?
I think
we're looking. The true believers are looking forward to this next 1,000 years. So, but again, you have to have studied this. The person
it can also be part of the birth pains.
Absolutely,
and again, if people don't understand this, I caught world leaders. It's been in Esquire magazine. It's been in the Press Democrat front page, mainstream San Francisco paper. It's been on national television in Europe. I snuck in and caught world leaders in black and red robes worshiping the devil. So why are you offended by us talking about how we're Christians and how our Bible tells us this would happen in detail, and we're kooky, but world leaders can dance around worshiping Moloch? I mean, if world leaders are worshiping the devil, we're going to be judged. Nations are judged. That is the bottom line. Would you agree, Mr. Brownfield?
Absolutely, and that's what I said earlier today. I think I've said it 2 or 3 times on national radio, that it's difficult for me to pray for America today. I can pray for God's people, and I can pray that as many people are going to be saved as they possibly can. But when our own children cannot go to a public American government school and stand up and sing God Bless America, how can God bless America?
I think the fetal tissue is part of it. I think trading with China, giving them the Olympics when they killed their political dissidents and blew up 450 churches publicly last year when they're murdering the Tibetans.
Well, go closer to home. How about all the murdering we're doing to our own children?
Yes, the drugging of them, the abortion. We're being judged, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, sadly, I think it's just the beginning, Alex.
And decadent societies are always judged.
Well, they have been, and they will continue to be.
But you guys are exactly right. I'll leave you alone.
Okay.
Thank you, Darren.
Blessed is the nation that believes in God, you know, and cursed is the ones that don't. And you can see who all these years have benefited and who all these years have starved and had war. See, American people don't even know what war is. To my knowledge, this is the first time there has ever been an attack on American soil.
Other than the British.
Well, yeah, but I'm talking about in modern history. Anything that anybody can remember. See, we went through 2 world wars and never was attacked.
Yeah, we had some German agents blow up a weapons dump in New York, but the media never covered that. They said it was an accident.
Well, I don't know. But
No, you're right. That's the only... I mean, nothing that we consciously saw or could address. That was on the History Channel, though. You're right. Nothing massive like this. I just don't know what to say to any of it. For those just tuning in that don't know what we're talking about, 4 planes, both the World Trade Center towers with tens of thousands of people in them have collapsed, hit by large passenger planes. A plane hit the Pentagon, blowing up a large portion of that and catching it on fire. And then outside Pittsburgh, PA, one slammed into their international airport, probably shot down by fighters. Fighters are swarming everywhere. 4 carriers have delivered their payload of planes out into the air. We've got jets scrambled everywhere. They're flying around here in Texas right now above us. And they're declaring civil emergency and putting the feds out on the streets in major capital cities.
Why would they be flying over Austin, Texas?
I don't know. I was outside earlier, and there goes a jet flying by. We've got Fort Hood, and they may be deploying them. You know, we've got about 5 Air Force bases just south of me in San Antonio.
Okay. Well, I'm not very far from the base up at Warrensburg, where they keep the stealth jets, and I haven't seen or heard anything. I don't know.
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Who's up next again, Mark? Wally in Minnesota. You're on the air with Derry Brownfield and Alex Jones as we watch the teeth being pulled out of the front of America's mouth. That's basically what those buildings look like they've knocked their teeth out. Go ahead, Wally.
Yeah, good morning, Alex. I couldn't believe it. I work the graveyard shift, and so I usually sleep till about noon. I woke up this morning, turned on the TV here. I was totally floored. I can't believe what I'm seeing. New York City's on fire. I think this obviously shows that the United States immigration policy is flawed. The borders of this country should have been closed down or restricted many, many, many moons ago. Obviously, these terrorists were able to get in this country.
If they're not going to do that, they're going to track and trace you and your family biometrically, the thumb scan to get food as they're already putting them in, and the borders are going to be wide open, brother.
You know as well as I do, Alex, that is the fatal flaw that we have made. These terrorists were able to come into the United States, get on a commercial jet, coordinate their terrorist activities.
Hijack at least 4 and maybe 2 others.
Right. Now, what does that say about our immigration policy in the United States? That says, hey, come on over. Throw bombs at the World Trade Center. Throw planes at the World Trade Center. It doesn't matter. Now, the next question I have is this. Before, when Clinton was in office, there was another plane that crashed into the White House area when Clinton was in office. Now, we have another plane, a commercial jet, that crashed into the Pentagon. I'm wondering what kind of radar protection and protection our government facilities have. Obviously, none. If somebody can take a commercial jet...
This is a highly, highly, highly sophisticated, coordinated action. That plane flew its route until it got to New York from Boston. It turned dramatically, flew under radar, literally in between buildings.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Now, how does a plane? How is that possible? Aren't our major government facilities protected at all by our Air Force? It doesn't seem like it.
We're going to pull housewives out of their cars at military checkpoints like we've already been doing in Texas and Tennessee. That's on my website, Mainstream News Stories. That will stop.
Alex, you know as well as I do. This
that
is not
will stop
only
the terrorists. Don't worry. Hold on.
States.
Don't worry about the Chinese military in the Panama Canal. The threat is the housewife that has an old revolver in her closet. Mr. Brownfield, any comments? Thanks for the call, Wally.
Not really. I tell you what, I have a meeting downtown in about 45 minutes, so I'm going to need to leave you, Allie.
All right, Mr. Brownfield.
I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you and to be on your show and to visit with your listeners.
Well, I know you'll be covering this more throughout the week on your show. Tell them how they can tune in and your website.
Okay. DairyBrownfield.com. And by the way, dairy is D like in dog, D-E-R-R-Y.
And you're on the hour before me on, 87, 90 stations?
Right. Something like that.
All right, sir. God bless you.
You bet. Thanks again.
Take care. Let's talk to Tim in Minnesota. Tim, you're on the air. Welcome, sir.
Hey, Alex, what's up?
Well, you know what's going on. The takeover.
I should say what's down. Anyways, I got a few frequencies for your listeners so they can listen into the FEMA martial law in progress. It's really active on 10.194 megahertz. Except that's not voice transmissions, but a voice transmission that's pretty active is 10.493 megahertz. That's 10.493.
And that's on the shortwave emergency dial.
Yeah. Also, there's one more FEMA, 5.211. That's 5.211. The military, they're pretty active. I've got one frequency, 11.175 megahertz. 11.175.
All right, we'll continue to bring people up to speed on this. We predicted it, Tim. I predicted it last week, didn't I?
Yep. I wasn't listening, but I'll take your word for it.
Okay, I'm asking you, how many times have you heard me say something just like this was going to happen?
Yeah, we've been all kind of been waiting for something like this to happen, and it's here. It's time to clean, dust off your guns, and make sure they're ready to go.
Absolutely. My car's gassed up. The bags are packed. I'm ready to hit the road if need be. All right. Appreciate the call, Tim. Richard in Texas. You're on the air.
Alex.
Yes.
NBC News, Tom Brokaw. I was shocked when I heard this, that possibly secondary explosions could have brought down the building.
Oh, yeah. There's no way. Just like Oklahoma City. Outside bombs don't do that.
They also referred to the 911 from your other caller, too. Up here, Dallas, DFW National is closed. Blufffield is closed. There's military on both airports. There's also reports that the banks, I don't know why they're saying this, will have money in case you need to withdraw, and that ATM machines will be working. I don't know why they're reporting this unless
it's almost like they want to run.
Right. Also, we know Congress is in hiding. Nobody knows where they are at. Kay Billy Hutchinson, one of the senators here, is telling her staff to stay away from mass transportation. What does that tell you?
And we have the police here in Austin training to drive pickup routes, as I reported Friday.
Exactly. Hey, Alex, one more thing. Watch out for yourself. You're a main voice, so you know what happens.
Hey, you only live once, brother. I look forward to whatever happens. I really do. I wasn't born to be a slave. I was born to fight the New World Order. We're going in full throttle. Nothing can stop this now. We're going to be just fine. We are, folks. There's a lot of good people in the government, a lot of good people in the military, a lot of good police out there that know what's going on. We warned them up front about all this. Let's shut the borders down. Let's deport the illegals. Let's annihilate whoever did this. If they start trying something else, we'll know who's behind it, and then we'll know what to do, won't we? Okay. Let's go ahead and go to Ted Anderson, president of Genesis, with an update. Then we'll go to Michael and others. Go ahead, Ted.
Yeah, just a quick financial update. Some of the institutions here in Minneapolis have put limits on the money that you can draw out of the account, so don't be too surprised if you do show up at your bank and they're not going to say, yeah, you can walk out with your $40,000 or whatever you have there. There is a lot of chaos in the system. I'm sure that the dust will settle within a few days and things will be more back to normal, hopefully. Anyways, that's what we hope for. But,
Or this could be the kickoff for biological attack, and I'm not speculating. They're reporting that now, Ted.
Yeah, I know they are. And so I guess basically what I'm saying is, don't be too surprised if you walk up to your institution and find that it's not there. They do have the ability and the written laws and rights to close down trading the doors at the bank and call them a moratorium. There's been just a few guys here in this particular area who have stopped into some of the major central banks, the type major banks, and they have a limit on what you can take out right now.
Well, the Federal Reserve 2 years ago, and their policy board said they want to use the tracking strip in all the new money to limit the amount of money you take out, and if you hoard money, they will make it worthless according to the strip.
Well, it's just the cracks in the wall. It's the monetary system that we have. It's a fractional reserve banking type.
And now the center of our commodities and trading has been leveled, Ted, and only bombs in the lower floors could do that, and that's now being reported, as we're told by the media. This is amazing. Are you blown away like I am?
Oh God! And my heart goes out to the people. First thing, I mean, I picture this being caught up in this thing, or having a family member caught up in this thing, and it's mind-boggling to think of the tragedy that just occurred. But then it's a financial institution. You know that those two buildings were worth a tremendous amount of money, and the investors that were put the money behind that particular thing, it sends a shockwave in the financial industry. There's no question about it. I mean, basically, billions of dollars have just been lost within a matter of seconds.
Right as the EU euro dollars are going online and being delivered.
Well, but that's one of the reasons why a lot of people get into gold, because there could be gold sitting in the basement of that building, and after they dig the rubble out, the gold's still valuable. It's the financial institutions right now that we're looking at right now, and with a very cautious eye. I look at insurance companies, for example. They have these trusts, and they have a tremendous amount of money tied into real estate. If you had a portfolio with these two buildings in it, you could have basically wiped out a very substantial portion of that.
This is massive, and for those that don't know, let me run back through the basics. A good suggestion that Ted has made. We had massive attacks at approximately 8:50 this morning. One plane slammed into World Trade Center South. Then another plane slammed into Trade Center North. As this unfolds, then the Pentagon at 9:40 was hit, very concerted. First plane at 8:50, next one at 9:30, next one at 9:40. All U.S. buildings on Capitol Hill evacuated at 10:13 Eastern, 10:15. World Trade Center South Tower collapses. 10:20 report explosion at Capitol. 10:30 U.S. congressional leaders, top cabinet officials moving to secure facilities. 10:30 another hijacked plane reported 20 minutes south of Washington, D.C. 10:30 second tower north collapses. Now we're told upwards of 5 other buildings are burning in downtown New York City. 10:43 hijacked plane crashes south of Pittsburgh, PA. Officials investigating yet another hijacking with the plane headed towards D.C. 10:45 EDT. All federal buildings in D.C. have been evacuated, and that's happening across the country. Ted, any other financial developments? What do you see happening?
Well, there's just been a few things. Now, some of my customers have been able to wire funds, and there have been some transactions conducted in that fashion. Other banks have disallowed that type of activity. Some people have gone into their banks and tried to draw some money and found that there was a cap or a limit placed on them at this particular time. It's good to have actually the truth in front of us rather than the fictional lie that there's always cash to be drawn out. But it is a very interesting test on today's economic world. We've been sitting in a position where we've basically living on a credit card economy and leveraged to the hilt, and this is a test of the system as far as
it shows how their control makes us all weak. For more details on the financial news, they're updating MidasResources.com and GCNLive.com as we speak. Infowars.com is the news center for all of it. Violet is up there hurriedly updating everything. Details coming up on George W. Bush and his latest address to the public. Ted Anderson, thank you for joining us. Please check back in.
Yeah, thanks.
And they'll be checking in throughout the broadcast. Keep it locked in to your local affiliates and to Genesis Broadcasting. Again, a lot of the evidence of government-sponsored terrorism in the past, from Pearl Harbor to the World Trade Center in '93, to Waco, to Oklahoma City, from sources like the Baltimore Sun, are on Infowars.com. MSNBC, Bin Laden, known CIA asset. Chickens coming home to roost. We don't make idle claims. As sensational as it sounds, the smoking gun is coming out of Europe or out of Washington. A bunch of sand people, and that's what they are, Bedouins, could not pull this off. They had to train the drivers, cook the bomb in the first World Trade Center bombing that they meant to take down that building on that support column, but the fuel oil didn't do it. Let's go to Michael in Georgia, then we'll go to other callers. Michael in Georgia, you're on the air, sir.
Well, Alex, according to the scenario put forth by Martin Keating in the Final Jihad, the Sand people didn't do it alone. They had help from conspirators, which were domestic enemies.
Let's tell people who this Keating fellow is and how it came out 3 years before Oklahoma City. Tell us the story.
This Martin Keating has long ties to the secret agencies within the United States government to such a degree that he is looked upon as a seer, as a prophet, that his predictions eerily have a tendency to come true.
And this is Governor Frank Keating, former FBI agent, highest levels. This is his brother. 3 years before Oklahoma City bombing, he wrote Final Jihad, where a McVeigh fellow bombs the federal building.
And the article appeared in the USA Today where he was lauded for being so accurate that while the manuscript sat at his publisher, an actual guy named McVeigh with ties to right-wing radical Christians bombed the U.S. federal building. They said, oh, this guy is a prophet. Okay, and he had an article that he sent out when you got autographed copies of his book. He sent you an article from the USA Today calling him a prophet. Okay,
and he should have been arrested on the spot.
Exactly. And listen, they over and over again, when you read the covers of this book and you see how it says, wow, his prophecies come true so eerily, spine-tingling suspense. How does he do it? How is he able to listen to this?
And then he says inside the book, to the Knights of the Secret Circle, I dedicate this book.
Yeah, exactly. Now, and of course, I've told you before, the publishing company, Logical Figment Books, their logo is a bomb, okay, a lit fuse bomb. Believe it or not. On the front cover, there are skulls and demon heads in the tattered pattern in the United States flag that's been ravaged by terrorism. You can see skulls and demon heads. I'm not kidding you. And inside this book, contained within the covers of this book, are terrorist attack after terrorist attack where thousands and tens of thousands of people die almost on every other page. I kid you not. The only thing, what I'm seeing today is, it seems to me, it's the wet dream of one Martin Keating coming true. This guy is substantiated by these events. And Alex, if we don't go along with whatever George Bush and the government officials say at this point, we'll be painted as un-American. We'll be painted as bad as those people that killed these innocent Americans. And what we're going to have to do is we're really going to have to step up the attack. Ever since McVeigh was killed,
Miners to get us into a war. Caught. NSA. Baltimore Sun. That's on Alex Jones. We're going to be just fine. What are they going to do? Shut down the Baltimore Sun, too? We've also got all these other reports coming out. We're mainstream. We're normal. We're just quoting the facts, bringing you the evidence. Now, I'm going to be live tonight from 9 to midnight. If you don't have an AM or FM station, today would be a good day for them to switch on and turn the nighttime show, and you'll get the best analysis, the best guests. We're trying to get General Benton Parton on. Craig Roberts, decorated Marine Corps officer and sniper, SWAT team commander, helicopter pilot who helped expose Oklahoma City as a government bombing, to help analyze this for us. I'm going to line up a bunch of people tonight from 9 to midnight. There are going to be other great shows all day long for you. Who knows, I might pop in on the Midas Report with Michael Trudeau. He'd probably want that, and by 4 I'll be chiming at the bit to get back on. But we have very able hosts that will be up, bringing you the news and information. I might even, if something develops while John's on the air, I might call in if he's gracious, have me on to hit some points, but we'll have that with everybody. In fact, I wanted Dave and Joyce. I don't know where they're at, but they're doing a great job. I wanted them on, Derry Brownfield. I wanted everybody on. This show was for everybody today, so we can talk about what's happening here, this disaster. Let's take some final calls. Who's up next there? I'm sorry. Mark. Father Gregorian up in New York. Go ahead, sir. You're on the air.
Yeah, how you do, Alex? I was just watching Fox News and MSNBC, and they said that the borders with Canada and the borders with Mexico are now closed. They got 2 warships and the National Guard are on their way to New York. Fighter planes are patrolling the skies over New York and
Have you
Washington,
noticed
D.C.
all the war movies we've seen lately? Pearl Harbor, Sneak Attack, the Brotherhood, Band of Brothers, all of this getting us ready, and even commentators were saying, "Are we getting ready for a war or something? Why all this push?"
Well, I firmly believe, like I said earlier when I spoke with you and Jerry Brownfield, that I agree with you guys. I don't think the president needs to look too far to find out who was behind this, and it's all been done. Like you said, cause something to get us under martial law.
Problem, reaction, solution. Only corrupt government stands to gain. And I know you're a listener. How long have I been analyzing this, pleading, begging people to get the word out?
Well, I've been listening to you now for about a year, and you've been doing it ever since I've been listening.
Well, I told you, folks, and stuff is only going to go downhill from here unless we really get bold and have courage and speak out. I mean, do you think any Arab country would really do this and want to be turned into a parking lot? If they were going to do that, they would have nuked Israel, and Iran now has nukes.
Well,
Syria has nukes. Why wouldn't they go ahead and do that? No. Bin Laden
I don't think so.
Is a CIA asset. I believe the EU is involved in this. There is a fissure. There is a tectonic power struggle in the New World Order right now.
No, I don't believe that this was done by the Arabs, and I myself feel it's.
But it's going to feel good to attack and bomb them and to get all the fervor going during a nationalistic war. During World War I, they hung people that protested the war. So I'll be here on the air all the way supporting the war. Don't you worry. Of course.
Well, I'd like to see the militias take up arms and really start doing something now. And as far as
well, let me say, I don't want to. We don't know who did this. We don't have the details. We know that building was brought down with shape charges. That's even on the news now. They don't just fall down like that. They could fall over, or pieces could fall off, but not just in 5 seconds. Boom.
Well, they said on MSNBC that at about, I think it was 10:38, a fourth explosion racked the World Trade Center rubble.
4:38, MSNBC. One of the unexploded bombs. Yeah, they got the unexploded bombs out in Oklahoma City quite nicely, didn't they?
Yeah.
All right, sir. I appreciate the call. Joan in Florida, you're on the air globally. Welcome to the airwaves.
Alex?
Yes.
What's today's date?
9/11.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Well, I haven't confirmed it, but supposedly in 1980, President Reagan signed on this date that 911 be the official emergency number.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it? My daughter tipped me off to that. She found it fascinating. But on the more serious side...
Emergency, save us,
Yeah, emergency.
Yeah, nobody seemed to care about the 4 black East German APCs with M60s mounted firing into 14 houses 2 weeks ago in a suburb of Los Angeles.
Well,
yeah.
I have a family member that called in to my daughter this morning, and
is that the colonel or the general?
No.
You told me about that guy. Yeah.
No, but this guy's retired, but he worked for these subcontractors. And last week, I believe it was last week or 2 weeks ago, he was down at Denton, Texas, working on a new program package with another friend that's retired, and his friend was over at Washington at the Pentagon, and what they were working on was putting a program together, a new package for communications with another satellite hookup.
Yeah, I understand. Joan, we got to jump. We got to jump. Thanks for the call. I'm almost out of time. Continue to go to Infowars.com, INFOWARS.com, Infowars.net. Don't let this paralyze you. Move forward. like a bunch of bees. Just call into all the talk shows. Tell them to go to Infowars.com and click and listen live for the truth, guerrilla warfare information. Stat Miller will continue with the broadcast, and our local affiliates, other great hosts that don't carry the rest of the broadcasting programming will be covering it, and I'll be back tonight from 9 to midnight. The State Department had issued on Friday a worldwide alert regarding Osama bin Laden and possible terrorist attacks. All parties were subpoenaed to be supposed to be on a heightened state of alert. The Lincoln Tunnel has been closed, and other New York airports have been closed. Armed jets are patrolling Manhattan, ready to shoot down other threats. President Bush has just made a statement saying that we will use the full responsive resources of the federal government to hunt down the people who have perpetrated this act, and that terrorism against our nation will not stand. Unbelievable, ladies and gentlemen. After the two planes slammed into the World Trade Center, they collapsed 45 minutes later from munitions in the bottom, obviously. Of course, the Pentagon had a plane crash into it, and part of it burned, a large section. Also outside Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, at their international airport, a jet crashed and blew up. At 10:30, U.S. congressional leaders, top cabinet officials moved to secure facilities. Another hijacked plane reported 20 minutes south of Washington, D.C. Never heard what happened there. Second tower north collapses. 10:43, hijacked plane crashes south of Pittsburgh. 10:45, all federal buildings in D.C. have been evacuated. 11:22 a.m., American Airlines confirms loss of 2 flights. United Airlines confirms loss of Flight 93 from Newark, New Jersey. General Clark tells CNN that Osama bin Laden's terror organization is only one that has claimed his kind of capability. They don't even have that. Also, former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, appeared on Fox TV and described today's national emergency as an act of war and said he had no doubt that acts perpetrated today were orchestrated by states and power sponsors. He said the acts were on the par with Pearl Harbor. They're much larger, ladies and gentlemen. This is 10 times bigger than Pearl Harbor. The Pentagon has been attacked. The 2 biggest buildings in our country lay in rubble. We got airports blowing up. And who stands to gain? Who stands to gain? Who stands to gain from this? Senator McCain's on TV saying we'll never live the same, give up our rights. What did we do? We didn't do anything. We've been telling you to shut down the border. We've been telling you to defend our country. You gave the Chinese the Panama Canal. To everybody, great job. More powerful shows coming up, and I'll be back tonight from 9 to midnight. Look for me to pop up on other shows. Stat Miller's up next, so stay with us. We'll be back.
Every day, the average person breathes over 8,600 liters of air, most of it in their own homes. Have you considered the quality of your home's air? Many people with asthma, allergy, and other respiratory conditions have benefited from the use of high-efficiency Inqua 3 stage furnace filter, and now it's available to you. This filter is like none other and can clean your home's air simply and effectively, just by replacing your current furnace filter. So if you want to have purer, fresher air in your home, call Breathe Plus today, 866-862-7328, and ask about the Inqua 3 stage furnace filter. It's great for homes with small children, pets, air conditioning, and dusty environments, and is available for as little as 10 cents a day. Call Breathe Plus at 1-866-862-7328. Again, that's toll-free, 1-866-862-7328, or visit their website at breatheplus.com.
This is the GCN Radio Network on WWFV, McCaysville, Georgia.
The American dream has become a nightmare. Dimes at the time on cardboard on corners in town. There's a cancer called crime in our city, and an unspoken fear. We're on our way down. We must take America back, put an end to the gangs and the drugs and the streets and the facts and the bad guys. Most always go free, that is wrong. We need leaders who lead us, not stick us and bleed.
go, Mark. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is the National Intel Report. I'm your host, John Stadtmiller. We're live, Genesis Communications, WWFB 12172, standard AM shortwave broadcast for the time being. Today's date, of course, is the 11th of September, 2001. Needless to say, we're probably not going to hear any more Gary Condit stories, John Benet Ramsey stories, probably for weeks and maybe even months to come. Ladies and gentlemen, what we have witnessed here this morning, starting at about 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, was terrorism in the United States. But the question is, whom? Who had to gain from this? It was a well-orchestrated and planned event. Simultaneous actions not only against the World Trade Center. A few minutes following that, it was the Pentagon. A few minutes after that, it was a downed plane 80 miles outside of Pittsburgh. It's apparently, according to the some of the House and Ways Committee on the military expenditures and funding, that this just proves that our military is too weak, that our intelligence and counterintelligence agencies are woefully lacking. And if anybody thinks that any of these supposed terrorists that hijacked American planes went through the little gates that you and I have as traveling passengers in this country have to do, you're sadly mistaken. The situation as it stands right now, the Mexican-U.S. border is being shut down. All planes in the United States have been grounded. The report I just got is refineries are shutting down as we speak. Nobody knows what kind of effect this is going to have on the markets. We're already seeing ramifications of European markets. The Wall Street gang is down today, and that's following many hits here on the financial markets. We do not know at this point, if Wall Street opens up tomorrow, what exactly is going to happen. I'm still trying to get my mind wrapped around this. I have Steve Quayle standing by. Steve, are you with me?
Hi, John.
Steve, horrendous day here in America, and I know you've been on the phone all morning as I have. What's your thoughts on this, Steve?
Well, first of all, I think it's really important that people understand that this type of orchestrated terrorism in deep cover, the hijacking of multiple aircraft, and by the way, John, we're still getting reports that Camp David was hit. I had a call from a young lady who was crying her dad was at Camp David, and this is something the networks have played down. Obviously, for good reason, the military doesn't want to acknowledge it, but I just don't see any reports on that. Suffice it to say, a young lady called, her dad's in the military there, and he said it was just devastated. So there's something that people have got to keep their eyes on. Let's face it, World Trade Center, gone. The Pentagon, let's face it, that represents the most sophisticated military in the world, and as I heard your opening, we don't have a clue. Our military has been so emasculated. What's going on? And I think this will change the entire history, not only of the world forevermore, but the United States. Look, before the markets even opened this morning, when this thing first started to unwind, the Dow futures were down 200 points. That would translate, John, most likely into a 600 to 1,000 point drop. London sold off 4%. Now in Europe, too, most people need to understand this. In London specifically, all the financial center and all the major, quote, terrorist targets have been evacuated. So what basically I see taking place now is you've got the world financial system that was up until this point really close to being totally destabilized. Now you've got the ultimate linchpin being pulled, and I think it's going to be Humpty Dumpty time in the coming week.
Well, Steve, I have said this many times on my broadcast, that I do believe that for martial law to be declared in this country, any actions taken of robbing us from our constitutional rights of self-protection, confiscation of firearms, terrorism, and the one thing that I heard this morning, and it hasn't been repeated since, was this operation in New York City. The response to this was called Archangel. And that the reports I have right now, that FEMA was aware of the situation before the first plane hit in the Twin Towers. Now, we cannot call up FEMA right now and get a confirmation on that fact, but that's some of the information I've got coming in to me. The important thing here is that I firmly believe that in order for this global, the escalation of the New World Order taking place to further seat themselves in power and in control, the key emphasis here is on control. I always said that it would have to come through a financial collapse. And what I didn't count on is it being exacerbated by a terrorist attack, which would have, they went after the financial district here in the United States. They went right after Wall Street.
Well, yesterday, John, on the program that I have that follows yours by a couple hours, I was talking about the cyber attack that was going to take place in the financial market, and that these things would be concurrent happenings. In other words, there would be a financial attack of some kind, then it'd be followed by what I believe is the Middle East war that's getting ready to break out. Look at the mainstream press now. Senators are likening this thing to World War II. And what did Pearl Harbor, and what did Pearl Harbor do for us? It got us into World War II. If they are using that historic parallel, then I think we've got to recognize that we are probably going to get into it in a big way. By the way, my sources, for the record, are telling me Iran is behind it. Iran funded it. Iran coordinated it. And it will be interesting, John, to see if they try and cover that part of it up as opposed to allowing the chips to fall where they may, because this is such a horrendous loss of life. On Matt Drudge website, they're talking somewhere between 40 and 100,000 people killed. 40 and 100,000, 40,000 to 100,000.
Well, we do know that and it was two airlines, and I find this rather strange. It was United Airlines and American Airlines. They just recently did a merger. I find it odd that these planes, and by the way, if you've noticed, all these flights that were coming out of Dallas Airport or Boston, they were either headed for Los Angeles or San Francisco, transcontinental flights.
Right.
But what disturbs me about this, and I've said this before, and you've done this going to the airport, going through the little checkpoint here, Steve, that there is no organization that would ever perform a terrorist act that is going to go through a metal detector.
No.
Not to be scanned. I mean, you get uniforms, you get ID tags, you jump fences, you do whatever you have to do. These people apparently, from all indications so far, commandeered these aircraft. Now, what's not been clear is how that was accomplished. But again,
well, they can do it, John. They can do it a number of ways. For instance, some of these guys have been deep cover in this country for a number of years. They can work as baggage handlers. They can work as food prep people. They can work in any number. One of the first things the FBI will do is they'll run, obviously, background checks on who showed up at work, who is still at work, who isn't at work. Then they'll go and do their job, which is to find out who did this. But what they're going to find out is that these were cells independently, I think, orchestrated. And I think, again, getting back to who has the most to gain by this. Iran has gone on record year after year in their diatribe that we are the great Satan and that they themselves were going to bring us down. Now, that may get lost in the Palestinians taking credit for this, and Yasser Arafat's condolences mean nothing to us or should any American. Here's the guy that sends little kids out to become martyrs for Allah. And the deal is that, all of this terrorism is orchestrated. Our intelligence community knows who's doing it, and now it's time to strike at it. And Hezbollah and Hamas have both denied now any involvement in it. Well, that's kind of like asking, how do you know when a politician's lying? It's when he's addressing a crowd, okay?
Yeah, but as you know as well as I do, we're through the looking glass here.
Right.
Black is white and white is black.
Exactly.
It very well could be that we have organizations out there that could be set up. There might be an independent action and the known terrorist groups. Now, what I heard this morning was not Iran. What I heard this morning was actually Afghanistan.
Well, can I tell you who funds Afghanistan? The Iranians. See, here's what you got to understand, okay? You've got a hub on a wheel, okay? And that hub on the wheel has spokes going out to the rim, okay? The rim is what makes the action of the wheel be able to go from one position to another. In my this little illustration I'm trying to share with you, the hub is still what supports the spokes that allow the wheel to travel. You follow what I'm saying? And the Taliban and Afghanistan, listen, the Iranian Revolution, if you will, is very much responsible for orchestrated terrorism, especially in the Middle Eastern world. When I'm saying directly responsible, look, everybody is on everybody's payroll in this world. Obviously, the Russians have enough spies in New York City to know probably who did it, what color shirts they had on, et cetera, et cetera. It seems like when we come to this point, we always get our senators, congressmen, politicians saying, gee, we don't have enough intelligence to know what's going on. I guarantee you, John, that if an ordinary man with enough money went and beat the bush, he could find out the name of the guy, the shoes he was wearing, and exactly what he had for breakfast. That's how close it is.
If they wanted to find Osama bin Laden, unless this guy would go to the Antarctic, dig a hole in the snow and pull the snow over him, we could find him.
Yes, we could.
The issue here with Iran, with the coalition forces, I've always said that this was Herbert Walker Bush's way of, demonstrating to the entire planet that the new UN coalition is there. They had ample opportunity to go in and go after the Iranian government, its seat of power. We did not do that. We kept this thing on a slow-rolling boil.
Exactly.
To bring it up later. Now, the thing that bothers me about this, Steve, is, and the indications are that the American intelligence agencies and their counterintelligence, the NSA, the CIA, the FBI, which is now has, 140-some offices around the world, that the indications are that they knew something was going to happen. Now, are they turning a blind eye to escalate things in order to make a drastic sea change here? Is it just the simple issue of money for rebuilding the military or to have more funding?
John, it's New World Order total takeover.
There we go.
And let me share this with you. Please, I'm not. There's no contest to what you're saying. The thing that most people don't understand is foreign policy extension is terrorism. You use cutouts, you use different third parties, but the bottom line is somebody always runs a terrorist. There's no ideology involved. It's big bucks. They're on somebody's payroll. When something like that, a major event like this takes place, somebody paid somebody to see that it took place. I think what people have got to understand is that what's going to happen, okay? It's the Hegelian dialectic. You basically produce the problem, you solve the problem, and then by solving the problem, you bring about the change that you want to have occur. That's called synthesis. So you've got thesis, i.e. the World Trade Center going up, and i.e. the Pentagon, and i.e. Camp David, and whatever other places go up. And the point being is then you've got the response. We've got to find out this and punish this. But what's going to happen, this is the first time in history every plane has been grounded, okay? John, they're talking about bank runs now, because I was on Drudge's report. All I'm reporting, ladies and gentlemen, is what's on the Internet. I'm just telling you it's on there. I've talked to people in North Carolina. I've talked to people in Colorado, Wyoming, and already people are, and I'm not saying they should, but I'm just saying they're concerned with their money. Greenspan has said he'll provide all the liquidity possible. But what terror does, it puts the terrorist in control of the situation. What you are basically saying point blank is we should have been proactive, and now all we can do is be reactive, and in being reactive, will the New World Order crew achieve their goal? Remember, it's their stated intention to foment World War III. And, John, I want to go on record as stating that I believe this is the beginning of that. I don't know if it's 3 days from now or 3 months from now, but the bottom line is once we've got, the whole thing in the Middle East going off, the panic in the United States, all of the things that are going to happen here, then it's perfect for them to launch everything we've all been talking about on talk radio for the past 10 years.
I've watched the news reports, and by the way, anybody that's got cable out there, the World News Channel, I was getting reports here, the Taliban in Afghanistan, I saw them denouncing that they knew the whereabouts of Osama bin Laden. They had their doubts that Osama bin Laden was responsible for this. We've also heard from the former foreign minister, Shimon Peres. He's already saying that his country, Israel, is going to give its full support to the United States on an all-out war on terrorism. And his words exactly are that, let me see,